Hey, Steve, how are you?
Pretty good. Hot.
It's hot. Just to give everyone an update, we are also streaming the webinar live on YouTube. That's where we're trying this approach. Like Leanne said at the start, this process should give a little more order to the meetings. As people raise their hands, we can recognize them, they can speak. Should all be able to unmute themselves because you're a panelist. So we'll try this for this month and see how it goes. I believe it might be a little more orderly as we get some more meetings that have more public comment. I think for the last few months with Zoom, it's been a little on the light side because we haven't really tackled any major issues. As we keep moving forward, I'm sure there's going to be more stuff that people want to talk about. So hopefully this platform through the webinar will allow us to do a little bit more. So Madam Clerk, if you want to add anything before we start the meeting.
No, I think this format will just be an easier format to manage. It will preserve the integrity of the vote. I think it will be easier to hear. And we'll just give it a try.
Excuse me, Council President, is this, or Madam Clerk, is this live on YouTube or is it where it's going to be posted, the videos itself?
It is streaming live now.
Okay, I was trying to actually log in. Is it live currently? Because I'm not able to see it when I click on that link that's on our city calendar.
It shows live on my screen.
Yeah, I see the live icon too. It says live on YouTube.
Got it. Do you have to subscribe in order to see it live? Is that probably what it is?
No.
Oh, you don't?
There was a link on the docket.
Correct, which is the one I'm clicking on, but I'm down to I'm on the home page, but there's no live streaming. I'll check. Thank you.
Mike, you mentioned that raising your hand is going to be better. Are we actually physically raising our hand, or is there, at one point there was an icon that said raise your hand, but it's disappeared?
Yeah.
I believe that attendees can raise their hand, and you
Get off all devices.
can, Councilman Stikos, you could raise your hand because we can see you. If you're you're a panelist, and the attendees can raise their hand.
Oh,
I get it.
Just for a point of reference, if I may, I was able to go do the streaming on YouTube, but I did have to hit subscribe. I'm not sure if that's for anyone, but I tried it on two of my laptops and it didn't work. Once I hit subscribe, they both did it. So just in case for those who it may not work, you may have to click subscribe. Because I see 15 subscribers now.
Looks like we have Councilman Hopkins, Councilman Brady, Favicchio, Pawlowskis, Stikos, Donegan, and Vargas. So I think we have enough to start the meeting. So with that, Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll on the meeting?
Councilmember Stikos?
here.
Councilmember Hopkins?
Present.
Councilmember Vargas?
Present.
Councilmember Donegan?
Present.
Councilmember Brady?
Present.
Councilmember Pawlowskis?
Present.
Council Vice President Favicchio?
Present.
Council President Farino?
Present. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the July City Council meeting. I hope you're all staying cool in this heat. We'll start the meeting with public acknowledgements and accommodations. First, we will recognize Maria Wall. We have a plaque for her that's actually, I believe, at City Hall still. So we want to thank Maria Wall for her years of service to the Cranston City Council. As all of you know, she retired earlier this year, pre-COVID, right before COVID, as the city clerk. She was a city clerk for a long time, and we just wanted to take the opportunity to thank her for her service. We do appreciate all the years she put in as city clerk. I'm sure as Leanne Zarella and Rose Albazani can tell you, it's not an easy job. There's a lot of thankless work that the city clerk does and has done over the last 12 to 14 years. So, Madam former Clerk Wall, if you have any words you'd like to share with the council before I allow them to tell you how great you were. You are unmuted. And you just muted yourself. Maria, you're on mute. Just unmute yourself because you're in the room now. I should be able to hear you, Maria. Oh no. Can anyone hear Maria? Not hear Maria besides me?
Yeah.
Maria, is your phone muted? Well, we'll see if we can get you squared away. We'll let other council members give you their thanks for all your years of service. Anyone from the council want to?
Sure.
Councilman Donegan.
Maria, I just want to say thank you. As you well know, this is my first term, and you were always welcoming with any questions that I might have from day one, holding kind of an orientation, if you will, bringing us up to speed on everything from getting cards and letterheads to how to write and introduce an ordinance. You were always quick to respond. You always answered the phone, and I just want to say that I genuinely appreciate your years of service and how much you've helped me over the past 2 years learn how to do this job. So thank you.
Council President, if I may.
Right.
Council President, do you mind if I jump in?
No, Councilman Brady, feel free.
Thank you, sir. Maria, I just want to add to what Councilman Donegan said. I was appointed and very naive to the whole political process, and your knowledge and your ability to defend and help me quickly learn about everything about City Council. Really appreciated it. A lot quicker than maybe I could have because of your help. So I truly appreciate it. Your knowledge is unparalleled, and I truly appreciate that you stuck with us on the council even longer than you had to, just to help find a replacement for your seat. So you'll truly be missed. I appreciate your dedication to the council, and thank you so much for all your help in helping me learn and be the best council person I can be.
Council President
as well.
Council Member Paplaskas, I think I got you first.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. I just want to echo my colleagues. Maria, thank you for everything. I came on in 2014 and you were very helpful. And thinking back to all the days where we felt like we talked 4 or 5 times because of issues with safety services or other things going on. And I just want to thank you for everything. You were always very kind, very helpful, very knowledgeable, and couldn't have done it without you. So I just want to thank you and enjoy retirement. It's well earned. Thank you.
Councilor Hopkins.
Thank you, President. Maria, thank you so much for initiation to the City Council. You were a very valuable person to me to teach me the ropes. I don't think I've eaten since you left. All the meetings that we had in the chambers there were very well provided for. And I know we're going to miss you immensely. And I really want to thank you and wish you all the best. Thank you.
Oh, let's speak.
Councilor Stichels.
Let's speak.
Go ahead, Mike.
It doesn't matter. Yeah, since we're the senior members, I thought we might go toward the end. Maria, I want to thank you again. I worked with you for 10 years, actually, almost, and I probably was one of the more demanding council members, only because, especially with the finance meetings and the food and everything else. And I was actually worried about this past finance session because I thought we were going to be in chambers, and I was worried where we were going to get the food from. But because we put some demands on you, but you were always very knowledgeable about the open meetings laws and about a lot of things, and it was greatly appreciated. And I know it was tough at times trying to push some of the technology issues, and we're well on our way now, finally, hopefully, to getting to what you and I both wanted to happen. So thank you for the many years of assistance with everything we did.
Councilmember Stichels?
Yeah, I'd just like to thank Maria for being fair to everyone, as far as I know. There wasn't any kind of, never had the feeling that there was political shenanigans going on, which most of us as city council members have a little touch of paranoia. And so I very, very much appreciate that. I did speak at Maria's retirement event at City Hall. And I think if there's one thing that's certainly true, it's that she's listened to me more than she's ever wanted to. So I'll just end it there.
Councilmember Vargas.
Thank you, Council President. Maria, I just want to go ahead and thank you for your years of service and public service to the city of Cranston. In addition to that, it's your patience and obviously your commitment and everything that you've done from us, whether it's with the licensing, with people walking into City Hall as well, whether it's even you helping them out. I know you speak Portuguese obviously fluently, and helping out even the diverse community that we also have here in our city, and working with each and every member of City Hall, but definitely in being very, very informative when I came in as a council person here to the city. So thank you so much. Well-deserved retirement. Enjoy, and I hope to see you around the area.
Maria, can we hear you now?
That's a first.
I know. So I will close with, when I became council president, this is a job that's extremely difficult. You don't really understand it until you do it, how much work goes into making sure the docket gets done, everything gets aligned, people understand what needs to happen. And to be frank, some of that stuff you just don't know until you have the job. So having been the council president the last 4 years, I can't thank Maria well enough for all the things she did to make sure we always did the right thing by open meetings law. We represented the city effectively. So I don't think this council would have functioned with my 8 years on it and my 4 as president without you, Madam Clerk. So thank you. Leanne, if you could maybe have I don't know if Elaine is there, have Elaine or Steve. I saw Steve running around the background. If he could maybe call Maria on her cell phone, see if he can walk her through how to get in, because we can always, when she does it, have a little break in the meeting to allow her to speak. That way we can figure out the technical problem and kind of solve it for her. Maybe she can call into the call-in line and we can find out her number and then unmute that way.
I just gave him her number, so he'll call her right now.
Excellent, thank you. So we'll move on to the second service award for the evening. We have a service award for Councilmember McCauley. As all of you know, we are appointing his replacement tonight. He did officially resign in the month of July. I wanted to not let his years of service go unnoticed and focus more on all the good he did for the citizens of Ward 2 and the citizens of Cranston as their watchdog and defender. From everything that came across this council, he really exemplified what it means to be a community councilman, and I know we're all sad to see him go. I didn't see him in the attendees list, so if anyone has any comments they would like to make at this point about Mr. McCauley, former Councilman McCauley. Councilman Brady.
I'll defer to Ken because I know they're pretty close, if that's okay.
Thank you, Council President.
Yeah.
Councilman Hopkins. Yeah, the first time I met Paul McCauley was standing in front of Cranston East during our first election. And prior to that, I never knew him. Although we did have a tie prior to that because I was his daughter's teacher at Cranston East. And this is a difficult moment for me to see him retire the way things ended. But I can tell you this.
Okay, my hands. David.
I did not get a.
Okay, all right, great, thank you.
I did not get to be friends with the councilman. I got to be lifetime friends with a very, very good man who served the public unwittingly, wore his heart on his sleeve. And as far as I'm concerned, what happened to him was a terrible injustice. But I hate to see him go, but I do know this, that I have gained a friend for life.
Councilman Brady.
Thank you, Council President. Going off of what Ken said, I learned a lot about city government and the type of council person that I want to be under the mentorship of Councilman McCauley. I'm honestly getting kind of chilly even just talking about it. The fact that he showed up for my appointment and at the time was the only Democrat. I didn't understand any of the politics behind it. But immediately I do now. And that's the type of person Paul McCauley is. And he took the time to get to know who I am as an individual, and he showed up for that meeting. And I will, I look back on all the meetings we had, and he always listened to both sides and was objective and, wasn't afraid to fight for what he believed in. And I truly also believe he's going to be very much missed. Like Councilman Hopkins said, I also though feel like I gained a lifelong friend, and I'll stand by him through and through. So I truly missed, and I just want Councilman McCauley to know how much I appreciate him.
Councilman Stichels.
Yeah, I think we all have the experience of someone contacting us and then finding out that they've also with some kind of complaint or citizen concern, and then finding out that they've already talked to at least one other council person, and they're really trying to get success through numbers of getting a problem property looked at, and whenever that happened with me and someone said, I've talked to Councilman McCauley, I would say, well, he's going to get back to you. I'm sure he's on top of it because he takes care of things like that very well. He's all over them. And I think Paul worked hard as a councilman. I think he honestly worked on some issues much harder than any of the rest of us. He would go to restaurants when there were noise complaints. I think we all remember. And he would go to the restaurant, not once, but several times to find out what the noise was like and talk to the owner and do that kind of nitty gritty constituent work that's so important to having people have faith in their government, that it is their government and not some outside force that imposes things on them. So I think Paul really.
How about our hike, Steve? How about that King of the Hill hike we went on?
Well, there were some negative moments, yes. But I think, yeah, there's another example. Paul came on the hike to see the where the cell tower was going to be placed. But that was Paul. He would investigate things. He would get the information, and then he would take it from there as a councilman. So that's what I remember, and that's what I think, more importantly, the people of Ward 2 remember about him, along with his many years coaching baseball or softball also. So thank you, Paul, for your service to the community. And I'm sure there's going to be more service to the community by you. And I think we'll all have a better city because of it.
Thank you, Councilmember Stichels. Councilmember Vargas.
Thank you, Council President. I'm pretty much echoing what all of the council members already have said. I want to thank Councilman Paul McCauley for all the advice that you gave me when I first came onto the council as well. I met him in 2016 when we were both door knocking, and I appreciate all the perspective that you provided. And I know that you gave great amount of leadership. They gave a lot of dedication, a lot of your time in public service to not only the members of the Ward 2 community, but also the residents of the entire city of Cranston. I think when it came down to Paul, you took calls and messages, whether it was in your ward or not, and whether or not, you always ask another council member. I know for my example, you've asked me, it was an issue in Ward 1, can I help you? And so thank you very much for that, and wishing you the best, Paul.
Councilmember Paplaskas.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. I mean, what can I say that hasn't already been said? I mean, Paul McCauley is everything you'd hope to be as a council person. He was out there every day working hard for the community, working hard for Ward 2, and working hard for Cranston. Like Councilmember Stichels said, you would get a phone call, somebody had an issue. It could be in Ward 2, could be in Ward 5, Ward 6. If they spoke to Paul McCauley, he was on top of it, and it would get fixed and it would get done. And he provided a great customer service for the residents. I'm certainly going to miss him on the council. He was a great asset to the council and the city. I wish him well. And like most of us have said, we're going to miss him. So good luck, Paul, and we'll see you around town. Thank you.
Council Vice President Favicchio.
Thank you, Council President. Yeah, I had the pleasure of sitting next to Paul for the last few years, and it was really a good thing. I mean, we got to, you know how it is when you sit next to someone, you kind of develop a little friendship on the council, and you talk here and there a little bit more frequently, only because of the proximity. But he was just someone who always listened to even opposing views and really didn't prejudge anything. He seemed to be asking questions right up until the last minute. And he'd even asked my opinion on occasion, but he was just a good council person who tried to get as much information as he could, going out to visit certain locations where we had some real strong complaints. And he was just an honest, hardworking person who always told the truth and, made his decisions not based on any pressure from anyone. So I'm going to miss him. Although I don't know when we'll ever get back in chambers. So I'll be sitting next to someone else for a couple of months, maybe. Anyway, we're going to miss him, and I wish him well in his future endeavors.
Councilmember Donegan.
Yeah, I'd just like to echo what everyone else has already said more eloquently than I. Paul, Councilman McCauley is probably the hardest working council person that I know, and that's no disrespect to all of you, but Paul was there for everything. You had a question, he answered the call. You had an issue, he'd knock on your door 10 minutes later and be there to help you solve it. And I think whoever comes next in that seat has big shoes to fill because Paul, there aren't people better than Paul McCauley, and I'll miss you, Paul, and I wish you nothing but the best.
Thank you, Councilman Donegan. I wish Councilmember McCauley was here to listen to all those kind words of support. I will close with, no matter what Paul did, no matter where he was, if he wasn't feeling well, if he had a family member that was ill, he showed up, did his job for the people, and he always put the people first. So thank you so much, Councilmember McCauley. We will miss you. Mr. Maine, you have some very large shoes to fill as we appoint you later this evening. With that, I finally see Madam Clerk Maria Wall on the screen. Madam Clerk, the floor is yours.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. It apparently was my settings. I needed to go in and make an adjustment. But I wanted to thank you all for the opportunity of serving as city clerk for 21 years. It was a privilege and honor to serve the city, its residents, and especially the city council. You guys were a handful at times, but I loved each and every one of you in your own way for what you brought to the council and the city. You were all very dedicated and committed people. When I started my term in 1999, shortly after that, we started with the fiscal crisis, and then there were a number of tumultuous events that occurred. But luckily, I dodged the pandemic bullet. I don't miss that one at all. But all I can say is really thank you. I really do feel it was an honor and privilege to have served. And I know I didn't make many friends. My motto was I abuse everyone equally. And it wasn't to be mean, but more that, you know, someone who thought they had connections, or the average Joe Blow who came into my office, you know, I tried to treat them all the same. You know, I didn't do for one what I wouldn't do for another. And it didn't garner me many friends, but, you know, I tried to be fair with everyone. As I did with the council, my job was to serve all of you, no matter, you know, your party affiliation. That didn't matter to me. So again, thank you for letting me serve as your city clerk.
Thank you so much, Maria. Anything you want to add?
Miss you guys. Nah. Listen, have fun, be safe.
You too, Maria. Thank you so much.
All right, bye-bye.
All right, now the public acknowledgements and accommodations are over. We will move on to public hearings. This is limited to docketed matters, not to include the new business that was up for introduction. So attendees, as you raise your hand, I will recognize you, and it's the same process as we were in chambers, name and address for the record. So anyone who likes to speak, now would be the time. If you could unmute, there you are. Mr. Murray, you are up.
Oh, thank you, Mr. President, members of the council. Just very briefly, I wanted to speak on in favor of Ordinance 5-20-04 that appears under your agenda under the Ordinance Committee. I did speak to the Ordinance Committee 11 days ago when they recommended passage of this ordinance. I don't want to repeat myself extensively, but just by way of background and comment, this ordinance was introduced by the mayor. It is what I call another tool in the toolbox for the zoning board. Presently, under case law and the statute, if an applicant is applying for a special use permit under our present system of ordinances, they could not apply for a dimensional variance at the same time. This goes back to a case in 1998. I've provided a written memo to the legal staff and the members of the council, just a brief history. This ordinance would bring Cranston in line with 30 other communities. 30 out of the 39 presently have the same type of provision in their zoning code. It's not for one specific application. It just means going forward, the zoning board would have the flexibility when someone appears before them for a special use permit to also consider granting a dimensional variance. An applicant would still need to meet the legal burden for both the special use permit and the dimensional variance. In all likelihood, it would be two separate votes by the board, but that would be up to the solicitor to advise them. This ordinance, as stated, is very clear that it's limited to specific situations. In my memo to the council, I described various scenarios that I've experienced over the last 32 years where an applicant, like a restaurant, could be allowed in an industrial zone by special use permit. but they could not obtain a dimensional variance. We have places of worship that are allowed in C4 and C5 zones by special use permit. And I once had a church that didn't go forward because they would have needed a dimensional variance. So this just puts Cranston in line with the other communities. The ones that don't have this ordinance right now, frankly, are some of the more smaller cities and towns, mostly local towns. I did provide a survey that I conducted of each of the zoning codes in the memorandum I submitted. At the ordinance committee, one member raised questions about an application that'll be considered by the zoning board for the Cranston Country Club. That is not part of this ordinance. And I don't want to distract from this discussion tonight. That's not on your agenda. We'll be happy to discuss that with the zoning board on August 12th, I believe it is. But I know it did come up at the time, so I just wanted to mention that. Again, the ordinance is pretty straightforward. So I, with no further ado, Mr. Chairman, Mr. President, I have no other comments. I thank you for your time, and I would certainly stay available for questions from the council if necessary. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Attorney Murray. Before you go, I do know this question may come up. Are you the attorney on the zoning matter for the Cranston Country Club?
I am, and could I also, just for the record, I didn't state my full name. It's Robert D. Murray. My office address is 21 Garden City Drive in Cranston, 02920. I apologize for not doing it at the top. And yes, I am the attorney for the Cranston Country Club. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Murray. We'll go to Douglas Doe. He's on mute. Good evening, Douglas.
Good evening, Mr. President, council members. Regarding the same ordinance, after 4 years of controversy, broken promises, and destruction of woodlands, the city council voted unanimously to ban medium and large grade ground-based solar projects in Western Cranston's A80 residential zone. Small accessory projects are allowed in the district with a special permit. Now, 6 months after that vote, the Cranston Country Club's lawyers before the council trying to amend the zoning ordinance to allow the owners to receive a variance to ignore the setback and height requirements for their system. Approving this proposal would be a betrayal of all the work that has been done to put the solar controversies behind us. The planning department memo states, quote, in full transparency, should this ordinance amendment be approved, the applicant has expressed interest in submitting a minor accessory solar project that would trigger both the special use permit and dimensional variance review criteria. The applicant's lawyer never discusses his solar proposal in the memo to the council, but he does mention churches and restaurants. This ordinance proposal is not about non-conforming lots in Eastern Cranston or churches. This ordinance is about bulldozing holes in the new solar ordinance. Arguments to the contrary from the planning director and attorney should not be taken at face value. The applicant has done more than express an interest, and the applicant is not the only one to be sure of the project. The solar company E2 SOL is already advertising the project on their website. Their site plan is dated January 7th, 2020. The solar project at the country club requires a 60-foot setback and a 12-foot height restriction, which should have been well known to the applicant. The applicant wants a 24-foot setback and an 18-foot height variance. The building photo I show you shows the difference between the 12-foot elevation marked by the blue tape by the window and the 18-foot height just below the attic vent. How do you hide that with arborvitae? Yet for some reason, the applicant has acted as if the approvals would not be a problem. As you saw in the aerial photograph I sent you, there are 14 pylons and 14 crates at the proposed site. Now, why would they take delivery of the raised support racks this spring if they knew they needed a zoning ordinance change from the council, a special permit with newly allowed variances, and the planning commission's approval? This system is extremely expensive, much more than standard solar racks. What do they know the public does not? There are far too many questions to be answered for the council to make a decision in one night. We all know the disastrous results of previous one-night decisions for solar projects. The council voted in 2015 to allow solar by right in Western Cranston without seeing any plans or having a realistic understanding of what could happen. They learn by experience and education that they made a mistake. They should not make the same mistake again. The owners and their attorney should go before the public and the council to present their plans before any changes are made to the zoning ordinance. The council should reject this attempt to get around the existing standards, and no one should pretend that this is anything else. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Doe. Mr. Ferry. Please unmute Mr. Ferry, and then the floor is yours. Mr. Ferry, are you still on mute?
Can you hear me?
There you go, Bob. You found the unmute button. Good job.
The screen changed.
Yeah, we're in a webinar, so it's a little different than last time.
Okay.
Name and address for the record.
I'm sorry. My name is Robert Ferry. I live at 2426 Cranston Street. I'm here to speak on Ordinance 6-20-05, synthetic herbicide use. As I said at the ordinance meeting 2 weeks ago, I live on the bike path. About 5 or 6 years ago, sometime in late June or July, I noticed that all vegetation 5 to 6 feet to the right and 5 to 6 feet to the left of the bike path suddenly died. All grass, flowers, weeds, small bushes, it didn't matter what it was, it died. I took pictures, sent them to the mayor's office, called and complained to Parks and Recreation, and really got nowhere. I suspected that Roundup or some other type of synthetic weed poison was sprayed to purposely kill everything. This has continued for about 4 or 5 years now, and every year I have complained literally and gotten nowhere. I have complained to Councilman Poplakis. I actually took Councilman Hopkins on a walk on the bike path 2 years ago and showed him the results of what I thought was a spraying with Roundup. Seemed like no one was able to get to the bottom of it. Finally, about the 3rd or 4th year, I had a conversation with Mr. Liberatore. He actually met me in back of my house and admitted that they spray everything to clear all the growth. I responded to him that you can spray a safe weed killer and you don't have to kill everything in sight. He said he knew that was possible, but that's not what they were going to do. The conversation led to nowhere, and the next year they sprayed again. This year, because of COVID, the usage on the bike path is probably triple than normal. Hundreds and hundreds of people go by my yard every day. So I contacted Councilman Poplakis and Councilman Donegan with my concerns, asking them if they would still be spraying the bike path with Roundup. Mr. Liberatore admitted to Councilman Poplakis at a meeting in May that they, at some time in June, they would be spraying again. I have supplied pictures to the entire council showing you what the Roundup does visually to the bike path. Unfortunately, we do not know what it does physically to our health and the health of many dogs and children that play on the bike path every day. I am here to ask you to please put through this ordinance banning Roundup or any synthetic chemical, weed killer being sprayed on the bike path. It is harmful to the environment, and not to mention the erosion it causes every time it rains because there's nothing to stop the water from running. Thank you very much. I appreciate you listening to me and giving me the opportunity to speak tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ferry. Any other members of the public wishing to speak? If you do so, you click the raise hand icon. I do see one more down here. It looks like Jess Moreno. Jess, you should be allowed to talk. Oh, you're using an older version of Zoom, so I have to promote you to panelist. I'm sorry about that. So, Jess, you're a panelist for your terms of speaking. Jessica, you should be good. seconds to make sure your phone's not muted. Ms. Marino, can you hear us? Madam Clerk, not sure why she can't talk.
Hello?
There you go.
Okay, can you hear me on the phone?
We can hear you on the phone, Jessica. Name and
Okay,
address for the
great.
record.
You got it. Yep, Jessica Marino, 799 Natick Ave. I would like to speak with regard to the ordinance with respect to Mr. Murray's proposal of changing the current ordinance and zoning such that dimensional variance and special use permits would be heard simultaneously. I'm in opposition to such a proposal, and frankly, I think it's a bit disingenuous to state tonight before the council that this is with regard to the ease of doing business when it is for the primary purpose of the current Cranston Country Club project. There are residents in that area that have expressed concern, and this is the wrong foot in which to begin with. The community is aware that a lot of work has taken place in the last couple of years on both the residents, constituents level and the city's level with the help of the city council. And together, we afforded responsible protections for responsible renewable energy, and we do not want to take a step back. We think that we should all abide by the rules and not change them midstream. And I hope that the council will take appropriate caution with such a measure. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Moreno. We appreciate your time. Any other members from the public wish to speak? I will close public comment, but since this is the first night we're doing the raise hand feature, I will allow, if someone in the next few minutes figures out how to raise their hand and would like to speak, I will allow us, unless someone objects on the council, which I don't think anyone will, allow us to go back to public comment, just in case for some reason someone from the public hasn't figured out the raise hand feature. So with that, we will move on to resolutions. Council Member Vargas, I believe you have a resolution this evening.
I do. Thank you, Council President. As you have all seen on the docket, there's a resolution that is that I'm submitting and encourage passage on this. It's a House bill, and what the House bill as it stands right now is being which is actually being sponsored by one of our Cranston representative, Chris Millay, but the Attorney General pretty much has introduced a bill. What this bill would pretty much do is allow the AG to investigate and enforce both individual instances of police misconduct, as well as patterns or practices of misconduct. In light of what we've seen across the country, there's been a huge demand from many to have more transparency, but also accountability within our police departments here in Rhode Island and obviously across the country as well. What this bill would do is would expand the scope of review by the AG to a situation where probable cause exists, such as a video evidence that an officer may have used, an officer may have used excessive force. Additionally, if a specific department has a serious abuse of force incident or excessive force complaints, the bill would also allow the Attorney General's office to do a pattern of practice review of that agency, very similar to the authority that's been afforded to the U.S. Department of Justice. The Rhode Island law enforcement agencies had been required to report incidents already of use of deadly force and custodial deaths to the Attorney General's office for review and investigation. This new protocol would then require that all Rhode Island law enforcement agency immediately report incidents to the AG's office regarding use of deadly force, death during apprehension, in custody death, any allegations of excessive force, use of force resulting in serious bodily injury. And so the AG's office will then lead a review of the incident and make charging decisions where appropriate. I think this is the first time that the protocol has been amended since 2007. I reached out to the colonel of our Cranston police, and the colonel is in support of the legislation as it stands and introduced in the Attorney General's office and submitted. The Rhode Island Police Chiefs Association also came out in full support of the bill. As a matter of fact, there was, I believe, a press release that they issued, and pretty much when I spoke to the colonel of the Cranston Police Department, as well as a couple of other police departments at Cranston State, they're already working closely with the AG's office on use of force matters as defined in the current AG's protocol for all lethal force incidents or when a death occurs while in police custody. So again, this bill will expand the scope of review by the AG to situation where probable cause exists. So again, this Senate bill was heard, it was passed in an amended format. It was sent to the House Judiciary on July 14th for consideration. This bill was introduced earlier this year in February. There has been no further action taken, but I believe that the AG's office is working in hopes that this bill, when it's heard, whether it's this year or most likely even next year, that is passed. And as I mentioned, and I'll repeat that again, the way the Attorney General's bill has been introduced, the Police Association of Rhode Island, including our very own Colonel of the Cranston Police Department, support it. And so for that reason, I thought it was a civil rights legislation, and it's actually recognizing the support of the critical civil rights legislation. And for that reason, I'm not going to read through the entire resolution unless any one of you want to, and I would hope that you've already read it. But I'm hoping that it's passed tonight and supported by all of you on the council as well.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second under discussion. Councilmember Brady.
Councilwoman Vargas, thank you for bringing this resolution to our council. I just wanted to ask Councilman Favicchio if he sees any reason why we shouldn't pass this on a state level, just according to state law. But from initial thought, it sounds good to me. But I want to ask him that question. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Are you, is that question to me?
Yes, sir.
Yes. May I speak, Council President?
You may.
Yes. Yeah, and I don't see any reason why it shouldn't be forwarded. It's at the legislature where obviously I think it belongs, and they haven't made changes since 2007. That would be the appropriate place to make any changes, and it seems like a really prudent, smart way to do it. Through the legislative process, through our laws, in a nonviolent way, you can make some change, and I think it's the right way to do it. And yeah, I think we should forward it there, and I'm sure that they will deal with it appropriately. It probably will gain passage, so it's a good thing.
Thank you, Mike, and again, Councilwoman Vargas, thanks for bringing this important topic up for discussion tonight. I'll definitely be in support of it now that I've heard legally that we can.
Thank you.
Any other comment? Someone else? Once? Only twice? No additional comment. Madam Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Stichels?
Yes.
Councilmember Hopkins? Councilmember Hopkins?
You're on mute, Councilmember Hopkins.
Yes. Sorry about that.
Councilmember Vargas?
Yes.
Councilmember Donegan?
Yes.
Councilmember Brady?
Yes.
Councilmember Paplaskas,
Yes.
Council Vice President Vecchio.
Yeah.
Council President Farina.
Yes. Moving on, next we have report of committees, Finance Committee, Council Vice President Vivekio, you have the floor.
Thank you, Council President. First, we have 6-20-03, Ordinance Amendment of Chapter 5.04.100, Code of the City of Cranston, 2005, licenses generally mooring fees, sponsored by Councilman Stichels. This was passed, I think, unanimously. It just increases the mooring fees. I urge passage here.
Understand motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second.
Motion and a second, under discussion. Seeing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Stichels,
Yes.
Councilmember Hopkins,
Yes.
Councilmember Vargas,
Yes.
Councilmember Donegan,
Yes.
Councilmember Brady,
Yes.
Councilmember Paplaskas,
Yes.
Council Vice President Vecchio,
Yes.
Council President Farina.
Yes.
Next, we had 6-20-04, ordinance authorizing the city to utilize Eastern Cranston recreational impact fees to build a splash pad in Ward 3, sponsored by Councilmember Donegan. This was amended just to correct the dollar amount that's in that account. It's about $900 difference, and that's the only amendment. I urge passage here.
Motion to approve. The motion to approve.
Second.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Donegan and a second from Councilmember Vargas. Under discussion. Hearing
Council
none. Oh, yeah. Go ahead, Ed. I think this one would have passed 9-0, but go ahead.
I think this was, well, I actually was the only one to vote against this, and it's not because I'm against splash pads in Cranston. I think it's going to be a great addition to the community. I will, again, like I did in committee, be voting no. That's only because I believe it's waiting here, especially with the city pool closed and the uncertainty of getting a cure of COVID. That being said, I absolutely applaud work that Councilman Donegan has done on this to get this through, and I'm confident it's going to get through tonight. But I still have reservations on spending funds when I believe if we waited a year, we might be able to obtain additional funds from DM. That all being said, like I said, I'm confident it's going to get approved. I just wanted to state the reasons why I would be voting no.
Hey, Councilor Brady, any additional comments? I'll just make a couple. For me, this provides like putting something on the ballot. It provides authorization for the administration to spend the funds from the impact fees program. If for some reason we have a flare up of COVID, I'm sure they'll make the right choice and do it in the most timely fashion appropriate. So with that, Madam Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Stichels,
Yes.
Councilmember Hopkins,
Yes.
Councilmember Vargas,
Yes.
Councilmember Donegan,
Yes.
Councilmember Brady.
No.
Councilmember Paplaskas,
Yes.
Council Vice President Vecchio,
Yes.
Council President Farina.
Yes.
Next, we had a resolution authorizing motor vehicle tax abatements. Was approved unanimously. I urge passage.
I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Second.
So moved.
I have a motion and a second under discussion. Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Stichels,
Yes.
Councilmember Hopkins,
Yes.
Councilmember Vargas,
Yes.
Councilmember Donegan,
Yes.
Councilmember Brady,
Yes.
Councilmember Paplaskas,
Yes.
Council Vice President Vecchio,
Yes.
Council President Farina.
Yes.
And lastly, on this calendar, the tax interest waiver approvals. This was approved unanimously.
I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
So move.
I have a motion and a
Second.
second. Thank you, Councilmember Vargas, for the second. Under discussion, seeing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Stichels,
Yes.
Councilmember Hopkins,
Yes.
Councilmember Vargas,
Yes.
Councilmember Donegan,
Yes.
Councilmember Brady,
Yes.
Councilmember Paplaskas,
Yes.
Council Vice President Vecchio,
Yes.
Council President Farina.
Yes. Moving on, Ordinance Committee, Council Vice President, you still have the floor.
Thank you, Council President. 5-20-04, ordinance and amendment of Chapter 17, Code of the City of Cranston, 2005, zoning special use permit, sponsored by the mayor. This passed in committee, and it's before us tonight.
Motion approved.
Second.
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 I have a motion and a second under discussion.
Council President, if I may.
You may.
Thank you, sir. I just want to thank all the sponsors of this, particularly Councilman Papalaskis, Donegan, Stikos. As we all know, in city government, sometimes it takes a lot longer than we want to get things fixed and corrected, and we only have specific amount of powers as council people, and then after that, it's kind of on the directors of each department, and you know, the powers that be to get things done. I know that you've all stayed on this, listened to Mr. Ferry's complaints about this, which I appreciate, but I also applaud you all for getting this. So thank you.
I think this one is the zoning matter, if I'm just to correct you. So Councilmember Brady, we'll hold those comments until the next ordinance.
Yes.
No need. And I will go to Councilmember Stikos, who is raising his hand as you jumped in. Councilmember Stikos.
I was just raising my hand to point out what you just pointed out.
I let him go. It was such a good flow, Councilmember. I just let it go.
Thank you.
So we have a motion and a second. Now, just to be clear, that on the motion and a second, you were aware that was on the zoning change ordinance that's before us. Okay, so now that is before us. Would anyone like to speak? And Madam Clerk, just to confirm, we did get a motion and a second on the zone change ordinance, right?
Yes, we did. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Stikos, I know you're going to want to go first.
Well, I guess what disturbs me the most about this, or one of the things that disturbs me the most, is the claim that this was the administration's idea and that no one from the administration has spoken on this tonight. So I think this is the same line that was used with the solar projects was, if you recall, or a few of us recall, was, oh, we were just looking through the use table and we made a few updates. And that, of course, turned out to be false. And what really went on was somebody wanted a solar project and they needed to change the zoning uses in order to get the solar project. And here we have somebody wants a solar project and we're changing the zoning code. There are a lot of things wrong with the zoning code, but somehow the only thing that ever gets proposed by the administration are proposals that are going to make it easier for large scale solar projects that damage the rural atmosphere of Western Cranston. And bit by bit, that rural atmosphere is being destroyed. And that's a unique thing in our city. And it's unique. It makes Cranston unique. We have very urban areas and we have very rural areas. But if we keep chipping away at the rural areas and putting up industrial scale things, and anytime there's a question changing the zoning to permit them, that's not going to be there anymore. And I think that's unfair to the residents of all the residents of the city. So what I would really like to see is if people really think this is a good proposal, and it ought to go back to committee, and we ought to hear from the administration honestly why they want this, other than, oh, it's for the Cranston Country Club. And if they can't supply that, that's known as spot zoning. That's changing zoning just to accommodate one business or one property owner. And that's bad policy. So I would urge either rejection of this or sending it back to the ordinance committee.
Thank you, Councilmember Stikos. Councilmember Vargas, you may.
Thank you. So when this ordinance was heard, I voted in favor of it, in passage of it. I actually, even after going through it and getting an email, I believe we all did, from Mr. Doe, and I received maybe one or two other emails as well from other members, some of which do live in Ward 1, although this properties not located in Ward 1 or this project in particular. But I really, I'm with Councilman Stichels on this. I would definitely like to hear the administration and hear a little bit more about this as opposed to rushing through this project. And I'm not saying maybe we are rushing, but I'd really like to hear from the administration or even from the country club, or I guess we have the legal counsel as well, before I'm able to really vote passage for it. So the way it stands as of now for today, I'm not going to be able to vote for it.
Director
Thank you.
Perillo, I see you have your hand up. Would you like to respond? I know they both asked for a comment from the administration.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I believe I spoke in favor of this at the Ordinance Committee, and I know Director Pizzullo also did. I'm sure he can elaborate much better than I can on this issue. And also the Planning Commission voted it 8-0. So I don't believe it's anything that the city is trying to slide by anyone's attention. It's been vetted by the Planning Commission. The Planning Department has vetted it. They're in favor of it. And if you want Director Pizzullo to explain, he can.
Director Pizzullo, if you'd like to add before we continue with Councilmember Communication, only because it's been requested by 2 council members.
Okay, what would you like to know?
He would like to know if you're in favor of, I believe the question from Councilmember Stichels and Councilmember Vargas was it based on the statements made in the Ordinance Committee, the administration was behind this zone change in this ordinance, and they would like to know that if that in fact was the case, and are you in favor of it? I believe that's Councilman Stichels.
Yes,
if you want to ask again.
And this is what we spoke about in the Ordinance Committee, and the issue was this was identified in the analysis of the zoning code that we had an issue with the special use and variance prohibition. And it was on the pile of things that we were going to address. Now, this is not a spot zone because this is a citywide ordinance. This is a vehicle for any applicant to be able to ask the zoning board for relief. This is not giving anyone any rights. This is just allowing somebody to go to the zoning board, basically hat in hand, to say, I need to fulfill all of the requirements of special use permit and all the requirements of dimensional. As far as whether or not there was some kind of hidden agenda, we were very forthright with the applicant to Cranston Country Club. This is not an application for Cranston Country Club. They will use this ordinance, but there are other applicants who will also use this ordinance. I heard something along the lines of utility scale, industrial scale, solar. That is, Cranston Country Club is close to 200 acres. This is less than 1 acre footprint or acre and a half footprint on a golf course of that scale. This is anything but a solar farm. This is for the use of the country club. However, the country club is not on the agenda, but we did want to point that out in our original memo to the Plan Commission, and it was discussed for about 45 minutes with the Ordinance Committee at the committee level. So there isn't any, hidden agenda on this ordinance. But to say that we did not identify this last year when we had our associate planner is false. It was identified. I had explained at the Ordinance Committee that I didn't even know that this was an issue with our zoning code, but it's an old quirk of our zoning code and it needed to be fixed. So this is just the timing of this moment. But to say that the spot zoning is really a mischaracterization, because you're having to go to the zoning board for relief, and there's no foregone conclusion that anyone is going to get through the zoning board for anything, especially a special use permit. So I think that's a little off the mark in terms of us changing zoning for an applicant. That's just not what's going on here.
Director, are there any other applicants right now requesting this other than the Cranston Country Club?
There will be another applicant coming forward that's percolating through the pre-application processes. And as I said at Ordinance Committee, I'm not at liberty to discuss because they have not submitted an application yet.
Thank you. I'm just asking because I wasn't at the Ordinance Committee meeting. I'm just trying to get a little more clarity. Councilman Stichels, you have a follow-up? And then I'll come to you, Councilman Vargas.
No worries.
Vargas, go ahead.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you so much, Steve and Council President. So Jason, if I may, if I can direct this question through the chair to Jason, can you allow me to understand, so will this apply, this change for all businesses? So if someone comes in and wants solar, is this in a sense, this change going to help businesses? Because I'm all for green energy, by all means, I'm all for it. And I do want to put on the record, I'm not definitely saying there's a hidden agenda behind this. So for the record, I just want to make sure that I'm not saying that. But I'm just, my concern is, how will this affect businesses or future businesses development coming in? Is this, what's the pro and what could be the con on this?
Well,
What's the worst case scenario, I guess?
As far as solar is concerned in Western Cranston, major primary use of solar farm has been banned. It's not allowed anymore. The only thing that is allowed for solar in Western Cranston is minor accessory, and those can include limited scale ground mounted, which the project we already talked to is one of those. And minor accessory for solar for larger, say golf courses, just use golf courses, say it's alpine estates, we haven't mentioned them. If they wanted to do this exact same thing, they would still need to go to the zoning board. However, if there was some kind of issue with either height or dimension or setback, they wouldn't be allowed to do it at all, because in the code, you're not allowed to do special use permit and dimensional. So, the purpose was to allow this limited system on larger scale sites. And like I said, this is a tiny fraction of Cranston Country Club versus how large the site is. This is not a primary use. So yes, this would benefit businesses in Western Cranston that have, whether it's industrial, whether it's farming uses, yes, they would be able to use this. Now, what we know about farming activities is that you're not going to put the solar panels in the middle of a farming field. You need to put them closer to a road or closer to a setback, because that's your productive area. So if you needed the dimensional variance, you're not going to get it because you can't ask for the special use and the dimensional. So this at least allows you to ask. You are in no way, shape, or form giving anyone the right to do this. It's at the leave of the zoning board. And these are tough asks. There's no question about it. Anyone thinks that we're just carte blanche giving the right to do this anywhere in Western Cranston, it's wrong. It's wrong. That means that you haven't seen the zoning board in action. This is something that they take very seriously, and they rule on every application independently. So does that answer that question in terms of the pros, at least?
It does. Thank you. Thank you for responding with that. What could be a potential con?
No, con is it's a use or an area that somebody does not like. And because the dimension might be in a setback or closer to a road or closer to a view shed, that could be the con. Now it's up to the zoning board to determine whether or not there are mitigation actions that you can and can't, install on the site to soften that. If you're going to do it in a setback, can you mitigate it? And that's the job of my department and the planning commission and the zoning board to try to come to some kind of solution on these things. Maybe you can, maybe you cannot. But to say that we can't even try, this is basically saying if you don't allow this, you don't even get a chance to go through the process to try to do a landscaping plan, to do a buffering plan, to try to mitigate perceived impact. So again, it's still a tough road, even if we were to allow this ordinance.
So can I ask a follow-up to that, if I may?
Sure.
And thank you. I'm just trying to, till this day, still educate myself each day with each and every one of you, and just picking off your heads and brains on things. So this project in itself, so obviously we had the whole solar farm information, all that stuff that went before us. How does this differentiate from what was passed in the previous years, where this whole solar became an issue, right? Because we want to make sure that we're not going to be a number one example as to what not to do, right?
Well, the basic
an example
difference,
of what to do.
the basic difference is that those were primary use solar farms. Those were 10, 20 megawatt facilities that were, large scale solar farms of scale, and they were the primary use of the property. There's nothing else going on those sites other than the solar farm. The big difference is that land use, the Lippert Farm, the Hope Solar, those cannot be done now. If somebody tried to push those forward, they're not allowed. So what we did allow in Western Cranston in the A80 zone was the minor accessory. And the minor accessory is you're generating power that can be used on site for the business, and that's it. So you're not providing energy to the grid, you're providing energy to your business. And that was basically all that we approved in A80. So that was that's the biggest difference. So this proposal that we put on we put in our memo when we disclosed it was basically meets the spirit of intent of that. However, the location is requiring a dimensional variance. So they can't even go ask for a variance at this moment. Whether or not they can get it from the zoning board is a different story, but they can't ask. And I think that basically says, well, even if you wanted to do it on your site, we're closing the door. And I don't think that that's what we intended.
Okay, thank you so much for that explanation. Appreciate it.
President, may
You may. Then Council Vice President, you're up.
I just want to say that this is not granting anything. All we're doing is giving the person the opportunity to go in front of zoning and get that authority. So that check and balance still exists. And again, 30 out of 39 cities and towns already have this. So we're not doing anything out of the box. It's basically just giving people the opportunity to present their plans to the zoning board. Right now, they can't do that. So if the zoning commission doesn't feel that that project doesn't fit the area, or for whatever reason, they can still shoot it down. We're not granting them carte blanche by passing this ordinance. I just wanted to get that out there. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Director. Council Vice President, you're up.
Thank you, Council President. Yeah, to answer some of Council Member Vargas's question, yeah, the solar thing was a use by right in an A80 zone, and this is not giving any use by right. This is basically allowing someone to have the right to even ask for something. I have some question as to whether, if we were challenged on the way the existing law is, we wouldn't get beaten court, because we're preventing someone from even having the right to ask for this relief. That's certainly a denial of rights. So my feeling is that's something that we need to do, at least give them the right. It has to go before zoning, and they may never meet the parameters of what the zoning board is looking for. And it applies to many different businesses, I would believe. And if it's in an A80 zone, and Director Pizzullo can correct me if I'm wrong, you could have your own little farm or your own home with a garage, and you want to put some solar panels to help run your horse stable. As I know, we have a horse stable, a riding academy or something in Western Cranston. So they would be prohibited from doing something like this, even if it was just it's a minor accessory usage, not necessarily for a major business. And it could apply to different businesses around the city, I would assume, Director Pizzullo. Am I correct?
Oh, yes, this would apply to every zone, and we don't see a lot of special use permits. That's just a fact. They're not all that common, but when you do see them, you might run into an issue where there's a dimensional variance. And then basically you're closing the door to that applicant for something that might be a worthwhile application, but they don't even get a chance to go through the planning commission and the zoning board to even ask. So again, we had identified this as a hindrance when we're looking at our overall strategy for development in the city. It's a strange quirk that we identified and said, yeah, this has got to go. This has got to go. This is not helpful. This is not something that I think we were looking to preserve in the zoning board.
One last question, if I may, then I know Councilman Stichels wants to ask a question, but of the 30 other cities already have this provision, and I assume the others are mostly rural, small rural communities that haven't even bothered.
I have not done that analysis, Vice President. I know that Attorney Murray has done that analysis, and again, I think that it's strange that we still have it. And I think most of us did not realize that this was a requirement because it hasn't come up. And when it did come up last year, we identified it as a problem.
Thank you.
Any other council members? Oh, Councilman Hopkins, because you haven't had a chance to speak yet, then Councilman Stichels, I got you, I'll come back to you. And Councilman Brady too.
Ken, unmute.
Ken, you gotta unmute yourself.
Thank you, Council President. I want to go back to our committee, first of all. When we voted to allow the country club to have this special use permit, this is not spot zoning, okay? This is a minor system that's being put on the golf course just for the use of the golf course. And this would apply to any business throughout the city, not just Western Cranston. What I'd like to do is ask Director Pizzullo a question. For example, if Chase Bank that's coming into the city wanted to apply for solar panels to heat just their building or their water supply, would they have to go through the same process?
Chase Bank, depending on which zone it's in, I don't believe so. The special use permit, and again, I don't have the zoning code directly in front of me, but I don't believe it would need the same requirements. Those uses would be by right in the commercial zones, so you could do them with just a building permit without having to go to the zoning board.
Yeah, it just seems to me that in previous meetings, we've encouraged opportunities like this throughout the city. I remember specifically Councilman Stichels trying to encourage businesses to use solar. And here we have a Cranston Country Club, a business trying to encourage exactly what we've tried to pass in previous situations, to take a small, this is not a big solar panel system. This is a small panel system to use specifically for the use at the country club. And we've encouraged this in past meetings, and I don't understand why we would be against it tonight. I think this is a good project for Cranston Country Club, and I think it would be a good one going through the zoning process, like Director Pizzullo said, in the future for other businesses. So I think this is a good opportunity.
I think that the point of scale, Councilor, is important because say if we look at Lippert Farm, that was 21 megawatts. So that's essentially 21,000 kilowatts. This proposal is 121 kilowatts.
Right.
So there's no comparison. This would have been a by right proposal in the older code. It still would have had to get a dimensional variance from the zoning board, but it would not have been halted because of the special use and dimensional requirements.
Okay, thank you, Director.
Councilman Brady, and then I'll come back to you, Councilman Stichels, because I think at that point, everybody but Councilman Donegan and I have spoken.
I just wanted to respond.
Councilman Stichels,
Oh,
I can.
If you have a direct response and Councilman Brady's yielding his time to you, Councilman Stichels.
Yeah, I think the issue, Ken, is not the fact that it's a solar project. The issue is where it is located, and it's located right on the road. So there's a 60-foot setback on Burlingame Road in order to preserve the rural feel of that area. What the country club wants to do is they want to put this solar project right on the road within 24 feet. Okay, that's half the distance between home plate and a Little League pitcher's mound. So it's right on the road. And of course, everything has to be clear cut because we don't want shade on the solar panels. So if this project was put somewhere else on the Cranston Country Club property, there wouldn't be an issue. I don't know about the height variance, but there certainly wouldn't be an issue with the dimensional variance. So that's the difference about this change is the issue of where it's going to be located, not if it's going to be located.
Councilmember Brady.
Thank you, Council President. I'm kind of, I'm going to be honest, I'm at a little toss here. We all did fight very hard to get to where we are with solar, and we acknowledge that, we might not have gotten a lot of the things right the first time around. I appreciate all the work that we put into this. Councilman Stikos was very helpful and answered a lot of questions as I was learning as a new council person, council president. You were all very helpful in answering a lot of questions. And, we put a lot of effort into stop large scale solar farms for profit when we realized we didn't necessarily have the best deal for our residents and for the city. I'm still yielding some, concerns from residents of mine regarding this ordinance. However, I'm also getting many calls in favor of it due to, solar energy is crucially important to the future of our city, as we all know. We worked hard. I think we've eliminated it in A80 for large scale. This particularly, my only concern is, to my understanding now, we have the ability as a council to, see these proposals that they come forth. This would basically, in my understanding, lose us that right. But at the same time, I don't want to, as Councilman Hopkins stated earlier very eloquently, we should be pro-business. We should be encouraging businesses to, pay their bills through solar. So if that is the underlying factor, I do not want to say that we shouldn't be encouraging businesses while we're already eliminating an A80. That also being said, I don't think this is something we necessarily have to rush because we took, a very, very long time to get it right this time around. But I also want to show that we have trust in our planning department and, our zoning department. So again, I'm at a loss. I just kind of want to state my points and hope to hear from some of my experienced veteran council people to maybe give me some insight on how to vote here.
Thank you, Councilmember Brady. Councilmember Paplaskas.
Thank you, Council President.
I see both Councilmember Favicchio and Hopkins. Since Councilmember Paplaskas has not spoken on this yet, he will go first, and then I will come back to both of you.
I promise to keep my comments brief. Thank you, Council Member Brady. I know this keeps going back to Cranston Country Club, even though this ordinance doesn't talk about Cranston Country Club. This is about giving somebody the opportunity to come in front of the zoning board. The planning department passed this unanimously. Usually when the planning department passes something unanimously, I take that I look at that and I say, wow, they've done their homework, they've done their work on this. And going before the zoning board isn't an easy thing. So there's still checks and balances. The more I think about this, the more I'm leaning on voting for it. Again, this isn't a vote for something for Cranston Country Club or not. This is a vote giving somebody the opportunity to even apply for something that you can do in 30 other cities and towns, but you can't do in Cranston. I think in the times of COVID, we need to think outside of the box a little bit and give businesses the opportunity to at least apply for something, just to stay pro-business and friendly with business. So that's the way I'm leaning right now. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilmember Paplaskas. Councilmember Hopkins.
Thank you, President. Just to clarify with Councilman Stikos, Steve, there is no clear cutting of trees in this particular site. I've played and literally walked that area numerous times, recently as last week. There is no clear cutting of trees. It is a flat grassy area. So we're not going to be cutting anything down over there.
I'm going to actually, we've been going back and forth a little bit on the country club, and I've been allowing it, but this is not really to do with the country club. Steve, if you want to retort about the distance changes and the potential for it being closer to the street, that's fine, but let's try to stay off the country club because technically this is about the zoning matter.
Okay.
Council Vice President Favicchio. You're on mute. Unmute yourself, sir.
Thank you,
There you go.
Council President. This is not about a particular applicant. this is about a citywide ordinance and giving everyone a right to have access to ask the zoning board for relief. So I think we're actually doing the reverse discrimination and targeting a business because we're going to take away a law because we don't like someone who may possibly file the application. And Councilor Stichels, you did mention that it's possible that the zoning board could have them move it to a different location on the property. There's no guarantee that they're going to get the relief that they seek. So I think that we're mixing these things. They're not the subject of this ordinance at this point. Now, could they make use of it? Sure, along with hundreds of other applicants that could make use of it in the future. I think we should. I don't think passing this gives them any leg up with the zoning board. Certainly, they're pretty tough to get through on a lot of occasions that I've seen. So, this is apples and oranges. The fact that we were even talking about what they're going to do to develop this is not the subject of this discussion. So I think that it passed for the right reasons, and it will go before zoning. It could get shot down there. So I'm still in favor of it.
Councilmember Donegan, I see you unmuted yourself. I'm assuming you'd like to go next.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Very observant. I've been going back and forth on this. I've been listening to everyone, and you know, the ordinance itself, there still is the ability to have a check and balance there through the zoning board process. But at the same time, a lot of the people that were vocal on the solar issues have flagged that this could lead to future issues. And given their experiences, I tend to weigh those concerns that they see something here that we might not want to move forward on. And so I'm still going to listen, but I'm leaning no at this time out of respect for the concerns that some residents in the area have brought up.
Anyone else? Councilman Stichels.
Yeah, a couple questions for the planning director. The first is, how did this, you said that there was a review of zoning and that this issue came to your attention. And I think Mr. Murray said that this statewide, the issue came to attention because there was a court case in 2001. How did this issue come to your attention?
Director Pizzullo, if you want to unmute yourself through the chair to answer his question.
Bernie, can you hear me now?
Yes.
That issue came to our attention last summer. We were working with Drew Flarmer, the former associate planner. One of his tasks was to help basically modernize the zoning code. That was his major task. So he basically spent weeks pouring through the zoning code, and he'd bring the issues to me about strange things in the code that he had questions about. And he had flagged that. It was last summer. And at the time, I remember we were all in agreement, all the planning staff was in agreement. This is just ridiculous. Why would we even have this in the code? So that was flagged, but there's so many different things we've been working on over the past year. If you recall, last summer we were working very heavily on the solar ordinance itself, but that got pushed aside. Naturally, it got pushed aside. It got put into the pile of future zoning fixes. So yes, that's when we addressed it. That's when we had flagged it, at least. That's not when we had a fix ready to go.
Well, how is it that, I'm sorry, the planner's name was?
That was our associate planner, who no longer is with the city. He was the associate planner.
All right, how is it that the associate planner reviewed the zoning code for any problems? You said about a year ago?
That was his task, was to review in detail the zoning code and try to modernize the zoning code. So he was spending, it was last summer. So he was spending weeks and weeks going through every line of the zoning code and trying to flag issues that came up, and this was one of them.
Well, how is it that if this analysis was done a year ago, this is the first proposal, I believe, and the only proposal to change the code from the planning department?
This is the first proposal to change based
The
on.
code.
Yes, no, we've been busy with other things, Councilman. So the whole idea of the special use and dimensional kind of fell to the wayside with other issues that we were working on. So the application came for the Cranston Country Club, and this was the natural time to actually push the fix forward.
Can you understand why I'm a bit skeptical that you come to us and you say you've reviewed the entire zoning code, and the only thing you propose just happens to benefit a specific landowner's project?
Councilman, there are dozens and dozens of problems with the zoning code. This was one issue that was flagged last summer. There's many, many, many issues in the zoning code that need to be fixed and modernized. I'm saying it was flagged last summer. But with everything else going on, it was not a priority to put forward those package of fixes.
Okay, you didn't answer.
In
my
addition,
question.
that staffer is no longer with the city and we don't have that position anymore. So we haven't been doing as much ordinance work as we used to be doing.
Councilman, upon that employee's termination, that kind of project was kind of put on the back burner because the other duties and responsibilities that there's only 3 of them in there now had. So that was kind of a benefit having him. He was a part-time planner, part-time inspector. So that's the assignment that Director Pizzullo assigned him to. But he was never able to fulfill those duties because he's no longer with.
Okay.
And that position was never refilled, and therefore we haven't picked that project back up again.
But
That's one of the positions that was.
all the work he did. All the work he did, only one proposal has come out of that in a year.
No, the staff did not propose this, Councilman. Staff is in support of it because we had flagged it, but this was not our proposal.
Okay. At this point, you've mentioned a second project that's in the preliminary stages. I don't want to mischaracterize it. I just don't know the proper terminology for where it is. But are you in a position to tell us what that project is now?
I think I told you multiple times the answer is no, but if you're fishing, the answer is it's not a solar project.
Yeah, you told.
That's the last thing I'll say.
Okay, well, you told us at the committee that the answer was no, and I recognize that. I didn't, that was.
And I just offered that it is not another solar project.
Well, I would like to move to send this back to the ordinance committee until we can find out about this other project. I personally think that we should be told about it now, but obviously we're not going to hear about that now. And I have no idea what it is. I don't know if it's a good project or one that I wouldn't like. And I think that we as a council need to know what this is before we open the door to another dimensional variance.
All right.
So I will make a motion to return this proposal to the ordinance committee for further study.
I have a motion to return this to the committee. Do I have a second?
I'll second for discussion.
Well, I'll discuss because everybody else got to speak except for me on the ordinance. So I'll invoke our rule that allows all council people to speak. You know, I'm very challenged by this ordinance as written. For me, it feels like it is a zone change that we worked hard to augment the solar rules in A80 to ensure that no large scale developments could come. I do understand that there is a challenge for some density, and I believe in really working for businesses. But I've been, you know, like other councilmen have said tonight, I've received a lot of feedback from the same people who called 2 years ago and said our solar legislation was wrong. And it took a long time with a lot of heavy lifting and looking at changing zoning and putting groups together to talk about this and to work together with the council to change the zoning. And I was on the council, as Steve referenced, back in 2015, when the then zoning director got up and said, no, this is the right thing. This other cities and towns have this. This is what their solar ordinances look like. This is exactly what everyone else is doing. And we started the proliferation of solar into Ward 4 and 80. I will not make that mistake again. I will listen to the people. I will have their concerns. For me, this is not a minor issue. So I will support sending this back to committee. I agree that we should know all the projects this could potentially affect and what those net changes would be. I'm not in the ideas of changing zoning first and then seeing the projects come up later. I think the body has been burned too many times by changing zoning before projects come before us. If there's 3 or 4 applicants that need this change, I would recommend that we see all the potentials, or potentially, have the planning director come to us and tell us, these are the kinds of projects that it would affect. These are the kind of things that would happen. These are the instances where someone would need this kind of variance. A full proposal as to, if this business A, needed to do X, they would need to get this and they could not do this. Because I think as a body, we always want to be pro-business, but we want to know exactly what we're doing. And taking more time, I think, for me doesn't matter. So I'm going to support the continuance of this. Councilmember Brady, then Councilmember Favecchio.
Thank you, Council President. I really appreciate your insight. I don't necessarily see the need to rush this myself. I understand all the points. I'm leaning towards being for it, but I, do have some concerned residents that reached out to me. I do want to still be pro-business, but there's no need to rush this. We spent enough time on this in the past. I have no objection to sending this back to committee, making sure that we're, being fully transparent to our residents as, they feel like we haven't been fully transparent in the past, and that's crucially important to this council. I think we've worked really hard to get a lot of votes 9-0, and we want to continue to be transparent, even going into an election season. Let's continue to work together to get this right. So I think I'll be in support of sending this back to committee, not being against it, but like I said, I don't think there's any rush here.
Council Vice President.
Thank you, Council President. Yeah, Mike, do we have one of our solicitors on the line tonight?
I believe that
I'm here.
our attorney is on, and I also think that
Chris?
think Attorney Rawson is here somewhere.
Yep, I'm on as
There he
well.
is. He's the number.
Okay.
I thought
Yep,
he was
I'm
the
on
number.
as well. Yep.
Yeah,
I was muted. Yep.
yeah. Solicitor Rawson, I just had a question. I have no problem with continuing and taking it back into my committee, but the issue of trying to find out who might be making a decision on a law, a change in our zoning law based on who might be coming before us, to me is problematic in terms of targeting certain applicants who we know may come forward and ask for relief under this circumstance. Do you have an opinion?
Yeah, I mean, I think you do want to be careful about describing, well, I like these 4 projects, but I don't like these 3 projects, so I'm going to tailor the law. I will say, though, Mr. Vice President, on your point before about being challenged, I think Attorney Murray made it clear that every city and town has the right to bring this forward. I don't think we'll be sued if we don't bring it forward. But 30 happen to have this ordinance. And we are the largest city that doesn't have it. But yes, I think as we go forward, I know that Mr. President did speak about looking at the projects in the pipeline. I think we have to be careful. I think Director Pizzullo can give general.
Through the chair to the attorney, that's not what I said. What I said was, I would like the planning director to tell us what projects could come through, where this zone change would be needed, not what was coming through. I understand the validity between attorney-client privilege and the understanding of the law, but there are examples where this could be used on sites in Cranston, and I would like Director Pizzullo to put together a list of all those places and ideas where it could potentially happen. So as a body,
no, absolutely. Then I misunderstood you then.
I believe Councilman Stuckey just wanted to wait. I don't want to wait. I just want to see hypotheticals and understand what this will do.
Yeah.
I think Director Pizzullo kind of went down that road a little bit about examples, but I misunderstood you, Mr. President.
Yeah.
Yes, I think Director Pizzullo should go through the varying types of projects, and I think he'll freely admit there's many projects, not just solar, that are under this ordinance. So that has to be clear. Yeah.
Council President, I meant the same thing. I said, rather than mentioning a specific entity or business that may apply, hypotheticals are the way to go. You're correct. And I have no problem with that. But to mention a specific business is very dangerous, because now you're targeting them and saying, well, if you don't like that particular business, you can't just make laws because it will deny someone you don't like. You have to make it consistent.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Council Vice President. I don't think it's about like or not like. It's about what will this zone change have on impact for the residents of our city.
Okay.
I think also, can you hear me, Council President?
I can, Attorney Kirschenbaum.
Okay, I think also it might be helpful for planning to come up with what would be like a prototypical or an example that might happen in each ward. Since Councilman Stichels is right, the wards are very different. And this zone change is going to mean different things for different sections of our city. Some may be anticipated, some may not. So I think it's a good idea to step back and look to see what effects it would have in each particular ward.
Yeah, I agree with that too, because the wards are different and will react differently to change. Any additional comments on the continuance? Council Vice President, Councilman Paplowskis, then I believe Director Perillo, you can go.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't think I'm going to be voting for this continuance. To me, this comes down to whether you want to allow someone to come apply for the dimensional variance or not. I'm in the belief that, to give people the opportunity to apply for it right now. So I'm not going to be voting to continue it, but I'll certainly, looks like it's going to be continued. So I'll certainly be at the committee meeting, and I'd love to hear more input, and my mind is certainly open on it too. So thank you.
Anyone else on the continuance? Seeing none, Clerk. Oh, Councilman Brady.
I just wanted one quick question about, I think it still falls under continuance. I can ask it to Director Perillo or Jason after this. So yeah, we can go forward.
Mr. President, if I may.
You may, Director Perillo.
As you know, there's a lot in the pipeline in the planning department. So I just don't know how much the council is going to put on planning, dive into this scenarios and hypotheticals and so forth. So I just don't want to make sure you're giving them enough time frame to do their due diligence. As you know, there's a lot in the pipeline for planning, and they are short-handed. So I just want to give them an opportunity to do the research that everyone's looking for.
Well, I will say that if for some reason they're not prepared by next month's ordinance committee, we could continue it again to the next ordinance committee to give them more time to build a case. Any further comments on the continuance?
Council President, may I please, real quickly? Sorry.
You may, Councilmember Vargas.
Thank you. Just to be clear, the information that we are requesting is to give us some sort of information from each ward as to the sizing, right? Because my concern on this as well is the way it is on this dimensional variance is just making sure that what defines what project is too big and what defines what project is too small. And I don't know if maybe I didn't catch that and that's on there discussed, but that's something I'd like to kind of hear at the next meeting if possible, if this motion goes forward.
Director Zulu.
I just want to point out that there's literally, could be thousands of permutations of what a special use permit could look like in a different district, and what a dimensional variance coupled with that special use permit could look like. So, I want to make sure that, if you're asking us to do this, and we're not just going to do some type of cursory look, honestly, if we look at this, we say, okay, what's a special use permit? There's not that many of them in every district. But if we look at Western Cranston, it's low density residential and a lot of industrial land. So yes, industrial land, there are special use permits associated with that, and they're dimensional variances. But these are both things that are standard practice. Dimensional variances are standard and special use permits are standard. put them together, and all of a sudden it's not standard. So, you know, I'm just hoping that if we go down this road, that, you know, it might be so mundane that you might not believe me when I'm saying. You might be like, wow, that was a real waste of time to do an analysis like this, because we're talking about a parking lot that doesn't have enough parking spaces. It might be a sign that's too large for its large lot. It could be, you know, numbers of things. But again, there's thousands of these things. So
Director Pizzullo, you're saying there's thousands of these things.
Permutations.
But this has been a hole in the code for many, many years. And this
It's always been an issue.
So it's always been an issue, and there's thousands of permutations, yet this is the first applicant that this has been an issue for.
No,
So
it's not the first one.
So this is, then you have examples in the past that you could use as mock examples that you could bring to the body. If there's, you know, if 24 people in the past have come to you and said, Director Pizzullo or your previous director, we need this change because of X, this should be very easy for you to pull forward, because like you said, there's been dozens of examples in the past where this has come up. So just go back to the Rolodex, mock those up, and show them to us.
It will be mundane.
That's okay.
I promise it will be mundane, and you won't be impressed. I'm being honest. Because you can look at dimensional variances and be extreme about them, or they could be dimensional variances that are reasonable. When you start looking at this in detail, it starts to fall apart. So we'll take a look at that at the next ordinance.
Because if it's mundane and there's not a lot of examples of where it's impactful, then why do we need it? So I think you have to prove to us that this is, like you say, it is a hole in the zoning code that we definitely need to change to help people in the city of Cranston do business more effectively. I think that's what I'm looking for as the council president. And if anybody else is looking for that, sounds like a few of us are. So I appreciate this. I know it's gonna be a little bit of work. So thank you very much, Director Pizzullo. With that, I will take a vote on the motion to continue.
Council President, could we just clarify, we're continuing it, are we voting it back to ordinance committee?
Council President,
Yes, Council Majority Leader.
a quick question. Is that enough time for Jason Pizzullo? Jason Pizzullo, should we push it out 2 months?
Probably not. I would say through the who made the motion to continue? I believe it was Councilman Stichels. If you want to make a motion to continue it to the September ordinance meeting, I think that might be more in effect.
That's fine with me if I really don't have a strong feeling one way or the other. All right, so I'll make a motion to continue to send this to the ordinance committee to be heard at the September ordinance committee.
Second.
Yeah, that's fine.
Awesome. I have a motion to continue to the September meeting in a second under discussion. Seeing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Stichels?
Yes.
Councilmember Hopkins?
Yes.
Councilmember Vargas?
Yes.
Councilmember Donegan?
Yes.
Councilmember Brady?
Yes.
Councilmember Paplaskas?
No.
Council Vice President Favicchio?
Yes.
Council President Farina?
Yes.
Okay.
President, is that going back to planning commission also, or just the planning department?
It's going back to the ordinance committee in September, and the planning department has some work to do.
Okay, so no planning commission. Thank you.
Okay. I guess I'm still up with 6-20-02. This ordinance, an amendment of chapter 8.08, fire prevention code, permits for hazardous substances, sponsored by Councilman Stichels. This was just to increase the fees to $75, Steve, I think it was.
Yeah, it makes them a uniform fee rather than a fee that's based on the size of the tank, and it increases in general.
Okay, and this passed, I'm not sure if it was unanimous, but anyway, there's passage here.
I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second under discussion. Hearing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Stichels?
Yes.
Councilmember Hopkins?
Yes.
Councilmember Vargas?
Yes.
Councilmember Donegan?
Yes.
Councilmember Brady?
Yes.
Councilmember Paplaskas,
Yes.
Council Vice President Ficchio,
Yes.
Council President Farino.
Yes.
Next, we had 6-20-05, ordinance and amendment of Title 12, Code of the City of Cranston, Streets and Sidewalks, Public Places, Synthetic Herbicide Use, sponsored by Council Members Donegan, Stichels, and Paplowskis, co-sponsored by Councilman Brady and Hopkins. I think everyone was in agreement on this. I urge passage here.
Entertain a motion to approve.
Motion
Second.
to approve.
Have a second.
What I said earlier.
Under discussion, Ed will revert back to his comments. I'd like to be added as a sponsor to this. I think this has been a challenge for a while. I don't think we should be using herbicide on the bike path. We should really work hard to make sure that we're only using herbicide in times where it's absolutely necessary. So some kind of overgrowth that really can't be managed by man, or some kind of poison ivy super growth. We shouldn't just be randomly using it on the bike path. So I'd like to thank Mr. Ferry, who brought this forward and really has been fighting for this for several years. So thank you, Mr. Ferry, for bringing this forward. Councilman Hopkins, I see you have your hand up.
Thank you, President. Just a quick point. Are we using this anywhere else? I noticed on, for example, the edging of the fences at the Little League fields, there's some brown, which looks to me like that not only weed whacked it, but then they sprayed it to keep it from growing. And I'd like to make sure that it's not on all fields as well.
Councilman Donegan.
Councilman Hopkins, and Director Perillo, if you know differently, please correct me. Based on the conversation I had with Director Liberatore, they do spray on the ball fields. My understanding is that when they're in the vicinity of a school, they do give at least a 24-hour heads up to the school that they're going to be spraying in the area. But my understanding is, yes, they do spray on the ball fields.
Well, President?
Yes.
Yes, I would have a very big concern about the use of that, especially with the kids at that age. We're talking about potential for childhood leukemia. And I would be totally opposed to using that type of spray on any of the ball fields.
Councilman Stichels, you look like you're scratching your eye.
I just, I agree with Councilman Hopkins. I think most of us have seen ads on television of lawyers looking for clients to sue over health effects of Roundup. I think it's just from a liability standpoint, we're not in a good place if we're using Roundup. And I think I just don't see, I agree with you, Council President. I just don't see the point to it, except in extreme circumstances, perhaps. But, you know, this stuff gets in the water and on the pets, the kids, the ball when it hits the fence. But for tonight, I do support passage of this, and I think we should look at a wider ban.
Thank you, Councilmember Paplowskis, then Vargas, then we'll keep going down the line.
Thank you, Council President. First of all, I'll certainly be voting for this. I want to thank the co-sponsors for putting this together, and Mr. Ferry and Mr. Pertucci. This is a long time coming, and I'm really happy to see it pass. I think it's a good first step. I think we should look into other areas. Just for example, I put in a request for the DOT to come out and cut the weeds or pull the weeds on Atwood Avenue with the median islands that are, on Route 5. And I saw them doing it, and they weren't using weed killer. They were actually pulling the weeds. So I think if there's a way around it other than using it, I think we should get a policy put together for Parks and Rec on how and where to use it, and then stick to that policy if there isn't one. So I think this is a good first step, and thank you everybody for voting for it, or who's going to vote for it. Thank you.
Councilmember Vargas, then Brady, then Vivekio.
Yes, thank you. First and foremost, I'd like to be added to as a co-sponsor if I can. I want to thank each and every one of the members who worked on this. Secondly, one of the things that I actually noticed this past week as I'm walking through Stillhouse Cove is I'm wondering if there's any way that perhaps the administration could reach out to DEM. So the Stillhouse Cove actually has little flags that says that it was actually sprayed with pesticide, and it was to control the growth of nuisance aquatic vegetation. It was sprayed back on July 24th, and there is yellow signs at every tree right now posted on there. I took pictures, and I did reach out to one of the members who residents who lives pretty much right next door and tries to take place of the Stillhouse Cove, or does, just as it is part of her property. I'm waiting to hear back from her because I wasn't sure if this is a project that was from, say, the Edgewood Garden Club or just anyone else regarding the cove. But it pretty much on the actual sign itself, it said, please don't drink this water, right? There was no restriction to drink the water, but there was restriction on watering any livestock with that water, or fishing or swimming in there. So I can forward that information to the administration, but this is definitely another example as to pesticides that is not only being sprayed at our bike paths, even at our baseball fields, even, I'm not even sure if it's around our school playgrounds, but also at Stillhouse Cove. So I'd be happy to share that this information with all of you in the administration as well, to find out if we can reach out to DEM on this. But again, I want to thank each and every one of you for working on this. So thank you.
To the members, I know there's other places that use herbicide, and I think Councilman Stichels and I kind of left it general. So if you could, we know if you're against it, that's great. Just try to keep it general and not specific, because we're on the bike path and herbicide. Just try to keep comments general if you can. Councilor Brady.
Thank you, Council President. For starters, again, I just want to thank the co-sponsors and the residents that brought this forward. I also want to specifically thank a cross-country coach that's running for council. She took the time to research this, and she's been attending these meetings, and she enlightened me on a $39 million class action lawsuit regarding misleading information to Roundup. As a city that's self-insured, I certainly think this could be problematic in our future. So I appreciate Nicole Renzulli, who's a cross-country coach here in the city, bringing this to my attention. In addition to that, I also wanted to say, not a week goes by where I don't get an email regarding our medians throughout the city. A lot of them are state roads. We can certainly do a better job of staying on DOT to clean up those roads and clean up those medians so that our city looks good. But I'm definitely in support of this. I appreciate everyone that's worked hard on it, and I'm sorry it's taken so long to get this through.
Councilman Vice President Finicchio, you're up.
Oh yeah. I'd like to thank Mr. Ferry and all the other folks that worked on this. I have seen the bike path. It's certainly a problem, and we should keep the herbicide from being anywhere in our parks and rec. And I'd like to be added as a sponsor as well.
Okay, so that's myself as a sponsor, Council Vice President as a sponsor. Any other comments on this? Seeing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Stichels?
Yes.
Councilmember Hopkins?
Yes.
Councilmember Vargas?
Yes.
Councilmember Donegan?
Yes.
Councilmember Brady?
Yes.
Councilmember Paplaskas?
Yes.
Council Vice President Finicchio?
Yes.
Council President Farino?
Yes.
Okay. And lastly, 6-20-08, ordinance amendment of chapter 10.32, title 10, code of the city of Cranston, type motor vehicles and traffic, Harrison Avenue at Vinton Avenue stop, sponsored by council members Brady and Council President Farino.
Motion to approve.
Motion approved. Have a second?
Second.
Discussion. Seeing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Stichels?
Yes.
Councilmember Hopkins?
Yes.
Councilmember Vargas?
Yes.
Councilmember Donegan?
Yes.
Councilmember Brady?
Yes.
Councilmember Paplaskas?
Yes.
Council Vice President Finicchio?
Yes.
Council President Farino?
Yes. Moving on, Rules Committee, Council Vice President, you still have the floor.
Thank you, Council President.
The only
Yeah,
question I have before we move on with this is we're amending our rules, which are not an ordinance, I believe, with an ordinance making the start time of the council meetings law. Is that the intent of what we're trying to do?
It was, yeah, I think, now there was a lot of discussion, and Councilmember Vargas can remind me, but about maybe continuing it until November or January, so that the new council can weigh in on it. But it wasn't to take effect. We were talking about making it take effect the next term. So, yeah.
Oddly, that was the other thing I was going to bring up, that if it's a rule change, we can't change the rules of the future council. We would have to have the future council meet and decide on the rules they would use in their future year. So I'm okay with making a law in January of next year that the council meetings have to start at 6:30, because the next council president, when he misses it, will break the law, and maybe the time police will come get him. But I won't be president then.
And I'll be eating dinner. So, but yeah, I'm not sure if we. Yeah, the question is, can we do it by ordinance? I mean, it's strictly a rule that the Rules Committee makes. I guess we can amend it during the year as we have, but in effect, it could be changed on January 2nd, 3rd, or 4th, whenever that first meeting it takes place. It could be changed again by the new council. So I don't know.
Or we could make a motion to amend the rules for the rest of this year if people are really passionate about meeting at 6:30 for the rest of the year. I don't have any conflict about it. I think if it helps people with timing, because we're probably going to be remote for a few more months. I have no issue with just drafting a new set of the rules with the time being 6:30. So I'm good with it, whatever anybody wants to do. So I see Councilman Paplowski has his hand up.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President and Rules Committee Chairman. I didn't realize this was an ordinance putting it into law. I thought it was just a rule change.
Oh, no, I saw that last week.
I don't want to vote to make it law, something. We don't have to do that. I mean, our rules are there, they're in place. We can amend the rules, we can suspend the rules. I didn't realize that this was an ordinance or a law. So I don't think we need to go that far.
I'm going to default to you. If you want to meet at 6:30 for the rest of the year, you let me know. I'll submit a rule change tomorrow, and we will meet at 6:30 going forward.
Yeah, so I put this as, I guess, a ordinance, which I had asked the clerk to put it as an ordinance for me, because that was the assumption that I thought we had to go through. I wish I would have known this before, that it shouldn't be an actual ordinance at that ordinance committee meeting, as opposed to being told now that why wasn't an ordinance after the fact, because it went before all of us. But I guess every day on this council is a learning curve for me. So at that point, the reason why I had introduced it, not knowing what the pandemic was going to be like in September, October, November, it was to actually initially have changed it to much earlier time to make it convenient for many of the members of our community who had reached out to me in hopes to try to make the time at 6 o'clock. I, in turn, had a conversation at that last meeting where this was heard. And I said 6:30 is fine when it was proposed. And I said, fine, I guess it's only half hour earlier, but it's still a half hour earlier that we'll be able to start. So the fact that we have a 21st century technology, where we're using this virtual platform right now, we don't know how much longer it's going to be. My other proposal was then fine and just leave it the way it is, and it'll get proposed at the Rules Committee for the next council.
Yeah.
Given the fact that it looks like we're still moving forward in this virtual platform, I don't even know if we have any partitions or anything, what the timeline of us reconvening at City Hall looks like. So I'll leave it the way it is, or just drop it, or I don't know, end it, I guess, so I don't, for lack of a better term, and reintroduce it next year.
Yeah, and that's partially my fault, Councilmember Vargas. I know you weren't part of the Rules Committee last time. You never actually sat through the rules process.
Yeah.
So had I been at the Rules Committee meeting, I probably would have just said, if we need to meet at 6:30, let's just amend the rules. So I should have been at that meeting. I do apologize. I was away. So
Nope, that's fine.
Councilmember Paplowski.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. I mean, I'm okay with, if we're going to stay on Zoom for a while, to try the 6:30. I mean, it's tough when you get out of work and try to run home, change, get ready, and get to City Hall for 7. But if we're going to stay Zoom for a while, if you wanted to try the 6:30, I'm not opposed to it. It's whatever, you decide.
Does anyone object to me starting next month's meeting at 6:30 to try to make it a little easier for the residents to be here earlier? So, I mean, it's 9 o'clock already, and We've been on for a couple hours, so does anyone object to 6:30?
No.
No objection on my end.
No objection.
All right, so we'll just start at 6:30. And we'll just violate our rules. No, there are rules. There's no penalty for violating them. So
Motion to suspend the future rules.
Yeah.
we'll just motion to suspend.
Just to be on the safe side for any legal matter. I mean, are we legally able to still do that, I guess, is my question. I'd hate to open up a can of worms right now for
Can
any
we
one of
suspend
us.
the rules as soon as we convene the meeting?
Well, we could just suspend one rule, whichever rule that is.
Right.
So, Attorney Ross, I believe I can just make a motion. I just don't know what rule number it is. Make a motion to suspend that rule for the rest of the term. That should probably be in order.
Rule 36.
Yes, that's correct. I
So
can defer to Evan, but I think that's fine, yes.
Attorney Kirschbaum, do you agree? His silence is agreement enough for me. So I will entertain a motion. I will entertain a motion to suspend Rule 36 and start the rest of the year's council meetings at 6:30.
Second.
So moved.
Motion second, under discussion.
Thank you.
Seeing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Stichels,
Yes.
Councilmember Hopkins,
Yes.
Councilmember Vargas,
Yes.
Councilmember Donegan,
Yes.
Councilmember Brady,
Yes.
Councilmember Paplaskas,
Yes.
Council Vice President Vecchio,
Yes.
Council President Farina.
Yes. Excellent. So we'll start at 6:30 next month. Thank you, Councilman Vargas, for thinking about this. It should help us a bit. Under public hearings, this section of the docket. Oh, well, Madam Clerk, I know you have my email in there as people to send statements to. It probably makes more sense if you put one of the clerk's emails, whether it's Rosalba or yourself. Not that I don't mind getting inundated with emails, but I'm just going to forward them to you to be read to the record anyway. So I should probably go directly to you.
Can I, Council President?
You may.
I was wondering about this because I had sent an email a couple months back once we started this. Would it be possible to just create like a city council at cranstonri.gov that people can send that to, and then it automatically forwards to the official, whatever official email that the council person has submitted, like mine is a Gmail account. That way people can send it to one inbox. They only have to send one email, not 9 times. And then it automatically forwards to those addresses. That way saves the resident a couple minutes, and it's easy to make sense of. They know they're sending it to the city council.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I'm pretty sure that we can make an email for the docket going forward that says council, at cranstonri.com. So I would let them do that, but then work on a behind the scenes thing where we automatically forward them to the 9 of us, so we can get that information. I think that's a great idea, Councilman Donegan.
So all 9 of us would get an email and we can look up the ward and see if it's a ward or if it's citywide.
In theory, yes, you would get, if someone wants to make a statement, it would actually probably save time and then have the clerk would say, could accept them as record as opposed to read them in, because we all have them. So,
okay, sounds good.
Or we could read them in the record. I think the clerk's going to have to do a little more research as to what other cities and towns do when they get when they're writings. So the whole idea here is to make it a little more transparent. If someone doesn't have Wi-Fi or Zoom or the ability to get to the meeting, can they still make a statement? So we're trying to because we think, based on the feedback we've gotten from the governor and the mayor and the technology people, we may be on Zoom for a few more months, and we're trying to give people more ability to speak, not less.
I think it's a great suggestion. Thank you.
Can I ask, if I may, please? Sorry.
Of course you may.
Jumping in. Am I wrong, or has there been a continuous email of the draft docket sent out to all of us? I believe it was sent in June, but I didn't know if it was sent this month. And my second question is, not sure if we're able to correct this, but when you do go on our Cranston website and you're downloading the time or information in order to get this information as to whether who to email or what's on the document itself, I don't know about any one of you, but I know as far as my end is when you click on it and you click on the doc, it usually says December 10th, 2019. And so I just wanted to bring that up in case it confuses anyone, but there's a date that's coming out wrong on the city, on that download.
If
so just FYI, thank you.
Madam Clerk, if you could just take that as a follow-up with I believe he's Director John, and just see what he can do to change that. All right. And on that, we'll move on to public hearings. This is for any member of the public who would like to speak on any matter. If you raise your hand, I will recognize you with a name and address for the record. I don't see anyone raising their hand.
I just wanted to confirm that I'm back. I got my phone back working, so
Thank you, Attorney.
I
Okay.
heard what you said. Chris was right.
With no members of the public wishing to speak, I will move on to the next section of the agenda, which would be election of city officials. Building Appeal Board, reappointment of Vincent D'Onofrio for term ending July 27th, 2025. I'll take a motion to, Councilor Stichels, you have your hand up.
Just wonder if anyone would object to voting on all these as a block.
Motion to do as a block.
Through the Council President,
Yes, Madam Clerk.
just a note, this was asked at one of the other meetings, and I believe the solicitor has said we had to vote on them separately.
I believe that is the case. I was going to say that, but since Attorney Rawson is here, if you could confirm or deny that supposition.
Yes, that was not me that said that, but you want to do the block of the election of city officials?
I'm a big fan of the block.
Yeah, I think though you're mentioning each person, right, individually as a reappointment.
I'll tell you what. Can I say I'm going to mention? I'll say I will entertain voting on X, Y, Z as a block. List them all out.
Yes.
And then we'll take a vote of the block. Okay, I'll do that.
Yes, I would list the names though. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
I entertain a motion to reappoint Vincent D'Onofrio for a term ending July 27th, 2025, to reappoint David Cloxton for a term ending July 27th, 2025, both to the Building Appeal Board, to reappoint Jack Traeger for a term ending July 31st, 2023, to reappoint Marianne Slocum for a term ending July 27th, 2023, to reappoint Fred Rasner for a term ending August 30th, 2023, all to the Library Board of Trustees, and to reappoint Thomas Barberi for a term ending July 22nd, 2027, to the Zoning Board of Review as a block.
So moved. A second.
That motion a second. Any discussion on the block? Seeing no discussion, Madam Clerk, please take a roll.
Councilmember Stichels,
Yes.
Councilmember Hopkins,
Yes.
Councilmember Vargas,
Yes.
Councilmember Donegan,
Yes.
Councilmember Brady,
Yes.
Councilmember Paplaskas,
Yes.
Council Vice President Vecchio,
Yes.
Council President Farina.
Yes. Now, a motion to approve the block.
So
Motion to
moved.
approve. Second.
I have motion to approve the block in a second. Under discussion. Seeing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Stichels,
Yes.
Councilmember Hopkins,
Yes.
Councilmember Vargas,
Yes.
Councilmember Donegan,
Yes.
Councilmember Brady,
Yes.
Councilmember Paplaskas,
Yes.
Council Vice President Vecchio,
Yes.
Council President Farina.
Yes. Congratulations on all your reappointments. Now we have to fill the Ward 2 vacancy created by the resignation of Councilman Paul McCauley. The person being submitted for the appointment is Anise Germain. She is a qualified elector in Ward 2 and meets all of the necessary qualifications to fill the seat for the appointment. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second, Councilmember Stichels, as the minority leader, you have the floor.
Yes, this is the recommendation of both the city committee, Ward committee, Ward 2 committee, and the recommendation of the Democratic members of the city council to appoint Anise to this temporary position. Obviously, she would have to run for election in November, and about it. She's I think she's very qualified. She's well educated. Lives on Dale Avenue, and I hope that people will vote to approve her.
Any additional discussion?
Council President, if I may.
Yes, Councilmember Vargas.
Thank you. So this is what I really think is a historic moment once again, that I am fortunate, we are all fortunate, and we are to see an appointment, although it's extremely, for me, been sad to see Councilman Paul McCauley step down. Just because he, as I mentioned earlier, he served the Cranston residents in Ward 2 with great pride and leadership. I also think that with this appointment to fulfill that unexpired term up until December or until the next person gets elected, I can't think of any better candidate than to represent the Ward 2 after Councilman Paul McCauley, other than Anise Germain. I said this earlier in my social media handles. I've said this during a press release as well that I put out. Anise is a current, she's a graduate student in Boston. She's a mother of 3, of which her kids attend the Cranston school system. She's been local in both statewide and just city, advocating for rights for children, for gun control, whether it's for the immigrant community, equality, women's rights. And so she's a hardworking woman who's always making sure that we all have a seat at the table at every front. And I'd also like to add that Anise will be an asset to the Cranston City Council, where diversity is much needed, now more than ever, where the voices of so many, not only is she going to represent obviously the community, but also the voice of Ward 2. But it's going to be an honor serving with her on the council, having another woman on the city council as well. And so with that being said, I wholeheartedly and respectfully ask my fellow members here of the council to vote for the appointment for Anise Germain this evening. And I look forward to the passage of this vacancy, and then look forward to be with her the day that she gets sworn in by our city clerk's office as well. So this is a huge historic moment for the city of Cranston. I don't think we've ever had an African-American woman be on the city council. Correct me if I'm wrong, any one of you or anyone. But this is a huge step. And so, Anise, I assume you're on the call, and if you are, I look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Councilmember Donegan.
Thank you. To echo a lot of what Councilman Stikos and Councilwoman Vargas have already said, and I've been fortunate to have known Anise for, I think, about 5 years now, and she's been a champion on so many important issues. And I was upset when she wasn't appointed to the school committee Ward 2 vacancy earlier this year, and well, to our benefit, she wasn't, because now we're going to get to serve with her on the city council, and she's a fighter, and we need more people like Anise, and I'm really looking forward to getting to work with you. And so I urge everyone on this body to support Anise to this appointment.
Councilman Brady.
Thank you, Council President. Unique situation here. I believe the only appointed council person on this council, and I would be remiss not to mention yet again that I still kind of have a chip on my shoulder that Councilman McCauley was the only one to show up for my appointment, and there were definitely some politics to be played. I definitely believe that this gives candidate a competitive advantage now that we've already announced elections. That all being said, as I stated earlier, Councilman McCauley did show up for me, and I'm for doing what's right for the people, and I always have been doing what's right for the people in a bipartisan effort. So I will definitely be in support of this appointment, because I believe the people of the ward do need representation over the coming months. To echo what Councilwoman Vargas said, I think it's great to see more women involved in city government. I think it's great to see more diversity. I certainly agree that we do need more of it in today's moment. I don't want to take away the past and my gripes of what happened to me for the moment today. So I look forward to learning more about you, working with you in the coming months, and I definitely will be in support of it today. So I just wanted to state, you know, how I truly felt regarding today. So.
Council Vice President Favicchio.
I don't know Ms. Jermaine, and I look forward to working with her. I just have a procedural issue with appointing someone who's a candidate, already announced candidate for that particular office. I think it does give a competitive advantage to that person as now becomes an incumbent. Just as if I were to resign and have someone appointed who is running for in my ward, I just have a procedural issue with it. I have no personal issue, but as a principle, it's just something that I don't believe in. But so I may abstain from the vote, but I don't have any real personal issue with. I understand what Councilman Brady's talking about, and I just don't like setting precedents that could be used for political purposes in the future. Obviously, she had no, was not part of any issue like that, so I'm not really blaming her. I just think procedurally, it's something that's allowed in our rules and in our charter, but it's just something I don't believe in.
Councilmember Hopkins.
Thank you, President. Yeah, I concur with Councilman Favicchio, especially this late in the process. Again, I welcome Ms. Jermaine. I don't know her that well, other than to say hi to her, and she seems very intelligent. And I like the fact that, as Councilwoman Vargas said, that we're going to bring some diversity to the committee. But at this point, I'm also going to have to abstain for the reasons Councilman Favicchio gave, but also in the way Councilman McCauley was treated. We should never even be at this point in trying to bring in somebody else. If he was treated fairly, this never would have happened in the first place. So I'm going to abstain my vote tonight.
Anyone else? Yeah, so Councilmember Paplaskas.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to welcome Ms. Jermaine to the council. I really look forward to working with you. It's going to be a good few months, and I know everybody's up in the air right now on elections and everything else, but I know that we're going to work hard the next few months and get a lot of work done for the city, and I look forward to working with you. Good luck.
Okay, before we take the vote, I will be voting, and I will be voting in the affirmative to appoint Ms. Jermaine to this position. As I stated, she meets all the qualifications based on our charter, and I won't, sit here and say that it's an election season. It is an election season, but unfortunately, Councilor McCauley resigned, and we need to get someone in that seat to fill the feet of Councilor McCauley and really represent the voices of Ward 2. And the choice is Anise Jermaine. So with that, Madam Clerk, please take the roll on the appointment of Anise Jermaine to the Cranston City Council.
Councilmember Stichels?
Yes.
Councilmember Hopkins?
Abstain.
Councilmember Vargas?
Yes.
Councilmember Donegan?
Yes.
Councilmember Brady?
Yes.
Councilmember Paplaskas?
Yes.
Council Vice President Favicchio?
Abstain.
President Farina?
Yes. Councilwoman Jermaine, let me be the first to welcome you to the Cranston City Council.
Congratulations.
Woo.
With that, Councilwoman, do you have any words for the body and anyone that happens to be watching?
Yes. Thank you, Council President Farina, and thank you to the Ward Committee, everyone who voted for me tonight to be part of this body. And I'm looking forward to really work collaboratively with you. I cannot say that I will be Council Paul Macaulay, and I really thank him for his service to our ward. He will be missed. I am not him, I know that, but I will do my best to fulfill my duty in collaboration with you to make our city the best it can be. Thank you so much for your trust. Thank you for your vote. I'm looking forward to working with you all.
Excellent. Welcome to the council again. We will be swearing Ms. Germain in at some point in the near future. We have to do that in person, just because it's nicer to do in person than to do over the Zoom waves. But I will allow you all voting rights tonight. Not that there's much left in the docket. As a full member of the Cranston City Council, you will be replacing Paul McCauley on his committees. We do need another chairman of the Clerks Committee. I'm not sure who is the vice chair, but Councilman Donegan, if you have your hand up and you want to take the committee, I'd be more than happy for you to take it over.
Yeah, I mean, unless anyone else really wants it, I figure just given the fact that I work in claims for a living, it might.
Don, you got it, buddy.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you before the meeting. I was actually going to just volunteer you tonight that, hey, by the way, as the president, I get to appoint the chairman. Since you do claims, you're going to be the chairman.
Yeah, that's fine. If I can utilize and leverage any of my professional experience to help the city in that regard, then I'm happy to do so.
As vice chairman, I wish Councilmember Donegan all the best and perfect attendance.
Thank you, Councilmember Donegan, for filling that open claim spot. I know we're going to have a busy couple of weeks because we've got a lot of claims to do. So thank you so much for accepting that, and I do appreciate it as council president. Okay, report of city officers. There are none. Executive communications. You all have the report on hiring special counsel and consultants. Does anyone have any questions on that report at this point? Seeing none, I'm going to move on. We have a request to be continued in service for 1 year. Captain Lawrence E. Karen of the Cranston Fire Department. Director Perillo has Captain Lawrence met all the necessary qualifications to be continued in service?
Yes, he has, Mr. President. He's met all conditions and passed the test.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I'll entertain a motion to approve the continuation in service.
Motion to approve.
Motion and a second. Under discussion. Seeing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Stichels?
Yes.
Councilmember Hopkins?
Yes.
Councilmember Vargas?
Yes.
Councilmember Jermaine?
Yes.
Yes, very good. First vote.
Councilmember Donegan?
Yes.
Councilmember Brady?
Yes.
Councilmember Paplaskas?
Yes.
Council Vice President Favicchio?
Yes.
Council President Farino?
Yes. Under Council President Communications, because it's 9:30, I'll try to keep these quick just in case we have a few council member communications to go over. It's still going to be really hot over the next couple of days, so try to stay cool if you can. If you can't, find a place that's cool. I know it's tougher with COVID for anyone that doesn't have air conditioning. Not a lot's open. Make sure you give the police station a call. They'll let you know if there's any cooling centers for you to get in. So if you need help, call us up and maybe one of the council members will let you come over. But it is really hot out, so please try to stay cool. It's going to be tough, but it's been hot the last few days and it will continue to be. So stay safe, Cranston. Stay safe during COVID and really keep practicing social distancing and doing all the right things. Councilmember Communications, Councilmember Vargas, Park Avenue Corner businesses.
Yes, thank you. I'll try to be as brief as possible. So the reason why I have the Park Avenue corner businesses on there is that we may have really no power based on our ordinance to kind of get a sense as to buildings that are in our community that are boarded up, how long they have to be boarded up, or pretty much 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years. Can a business be pretty much boarded up into infinity if we feel that, I guess, the building is secure or not. But clearly I'm referring to the business that's on the corner of Park Avenue and Warwick Avenue, where it is obviously continuing to eyesore. Kind of started reading a couple of ordinances throughout the entire through the country at some of the cities and towns regarding boarding up buildings. And some of them have ordinances that are a little bit stricter than ours, where there's a building that's potentially boarded with, say, longer than 45 days or so. We can bring them in and kind of ask them what the status on that is. I'm not sure, I doubt that we have that in our books based on the ordinance that I started kind of just researching on my end. Kind of looking forward to see whether or not on our end, whether it's a legal solicitor for the council or for the city, can maybe do some digging if there's anything out there that we could potentially do. I know it's a privately owned business. I understand that completely. There's really not much we can do, which is why I'm trying to dig it on this end. And while so that's one thing. And I do have one more, which is a very quick item on there as well, Council President. I can either ask for it now and then get a response from the city solicitor on my first issue, or whatever is best.
Ask it now while he's researching your first issue. I think that makes sense.
Yeah, and if they need time researching, again, I don't need an answer right now. I just wanted to put it out there for the record. Because again, as we all know, as just around the city, around Ward 1, it's a common ground question that I get, and it's I'm sure many of you are going to be getting it as well. The second question that I have is I wasn't sure whether or not we have any update on that $4.1 million coming from this for the school funding.
I have not received an update as yet from the State House. I know they're still working through their budget. I don't know if any of the council member has. Council Vice President, you're the closest up there. So how are they doing on the budget?
Yeah, well, it's not there yet. I think we got another week or so before we'll get any word, at least. So unfortunately, I think it may be the beginning of August.
Thank you, council member.
Thank you.
Council President Farina, I want to just make one comment if I can.
Is this Bob?
Of course you can, yeah. Director Strom. I didn't even know you were here. Welcome, Director
Strom.
Neither
did I.
I'm always here. No, I just want you to know that I've been having weekly conversations with Peter Schaefer from the Rhode Island League of Cities and Town, with all finance directors, and at this point we are speaking to Steve Coleman of the Municipal Affairs, and hopefully we should have better insight on some of the funding for this past year and going forward once well, especially for this past year, probably by the beginning of August, and hopefully we'll have more information by I would say the second or third week in August for fiscal year 21. So we've been working on that. We did get some money in for our Public Service Corporation tax. So I've been monitoring it very carefully with the league.
Thank you so much, Director Strom. And again, Senator Reed's office, who I've been in touch with as well, has mentioned to me that we did secure some funding that was coming in or came in already to the state, to maybe Ride or the governor's office at some point. And so having known that, and reaching out to even some of the members of the House Finance, I'm just trying to get a sense as to where we are on the funding on that. We know that's pretty much a lot of it is federal dollars coming in, and it's being delayed probably at the Senate level, or whether there's a couple, whether it's the CARES Act or the HEROES Act that's being placed on hold. But I'm pretty much just asking, given the fact that we're at the end of June, and see what we're able to do for the schools as we're getting closer and closer to the potential start date in our city.
One follow-up is, I just want to give you one follow-up.
Sure.
This week, usually for the month of July, we get at the end of July our first school aid payment, and last year was around 1/6. It's the short month. Then it gets sizably greater for the following 11 months. Figure I was given today, what we will be receiving at the end of this week, is approximately equal to that. So we're not, we are getting almost comparable to what we got last year. I think the difference is about $30,000.
Yeah.
And that's for the month of July only. Going forward, you know, as I stated, we have weekly meetings and putting pressure to get figures from RIDE to know what we are going to be getting.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I just was, again, just following up on this, trying to figure out.
Yeah.
Just because there's been stimulus money, obviously, as we know, coming in.
Right.
And then there's a second pot, right, as well, which is the COVID money.
Right.
So thank you.
COVID money, we've been working with our consultant to, you know, submit it to FEMA for reimbursement as well. Now,
yep.
Councilwoman Vargas, if you hear anything else, please call me, because any information I have would be very helpful.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. I've been in touch with the school CFO as well, so I'll definitely be calling. You're going to get tired of me calling you. You're gonna regret saying that.
No, not at all. I don't mind hearing from any of the council people.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I appreciate it, Bob.
Thank you, Director Strom.
Oh, Director Strom, sorry.
On your, Councilmember Vargas, on your other question, I think we should probably put that on a Public Works meeting, just because it'll give the attorney time to look at it, research it. So I know Councilman Stichels has a ton of history on the issues of with that building. So I think we could probably have a good conversation at Public Works and what to do around boarded up buildings after they get past a certain time, and reference what ordinances we need to change, if anything. So I would recommend throwing that on Councilmember Hopkins' next Public Works Committee meeting.
Thank you.
Awesome. Moving on, Councilmember Communications, Councilmember Stichels, you have something on the docket, and then I will get to Councilmember Paplaskas.
Unmute your mic.
Mute your mic, Ron.
I like that one, Mike.
What?
I just muted Ron. There you go, Steve.
Okay. We're all aware of what's going on nationally with the concern about the police and the use of violence by the police. And I think we've also heard from the police chief about, briefly about what Cranston's policies are and how the police department is accredited and kind of ahead of the curve on this. I think a lot of the residents of the city are nervous about the situation of what could happen with them or with their kids and the police. And I think it would be helpful for everyone for us to have some kind of public forum where the chief lays out what the policies are with chokeholds and what the policies are with force and de-escalation of incidents. And that where we can ask questions and the public can ask questions and we can air it out and basically show off our, what I think is our very competent police department. So I don't know if that would be the Safety Services Committee, it would be a special meeting of the council. I'm really open to anything, but I think we should do some public meeting where the chief can address the concerns that residents have, that the violence and deaths that have occurred in other communities, that there are safeguards in Cranston that won't happen.
Thank you for the suggestion, Councilmember Stichels. I think the first step would probably be to have the colonel come before the Safety Services and Licensing Committee, have an open discussion with him about how to have the meeting because of social distancing rules and things we need to do to make sure that all the public can attend and where to have it, when to have it, and how to do it. So I think Councilman Paplaskas, if on the next Safety Services and Licensing Committee, you could add this as a topic to have the chief come. I know, the major will be there. They're always there, but we'll have the chief come and really discuss this as a body to figure out what the best forum is. And if any council member can think of suggestions between now and the Safety Service meeting, I think that would be good preparation for this. Think about places we could have it. I do agree that the Cranston Police Department is a fantastic police department that is really at the forefront of community policing and is far ahead of any and every police department in this city and state, rather. So I think getting that information to the public and really helping them understand like what we do and what the chief and the men and women in blue do is very important. So Councilman Stichels, I think that's a great idea. So Councilman Paplaskas, if you could put that on your next Safety Services meeting, I think that'd be a great first step for some dialogue.
Council President, may I please?
You may, Councilman Vargas.
Thank you. I spoke to the chief maybe a few weeks ago about this as well, when I had a meeting with him on a couple of other issues. National Night Out is usually, I believe, the first weekend or week of August. And I think one of the things that they were potentially looking at as well is integrating that National Night Out, which most likely will be moved to maybe sometime in September. The last I heard, I could be totally wrong. Obviously, we know it's a national level and Cranston Police is extremely active where they do the National Night Out. I believe it was at Garden City. I'm not sure if they'll do it again, but That was something that they were also exploring. So that just as an FYI as well, based on my conversation. So I'm not sure if maybe we want to reach out to the members of the police department who usually put that together, because that's another way of kind of getting, that relationship and information out there and integrating with folks and kind of get a sense as to what's going on and what we're doing too.
Thank you, Councilman Vargas. Director Perillo, when you ask Council, the Colonel to come to the meeting, just ask him to bring any relevant people he think might need to be part of the discussion at the Safety Services meeting. That way everybody's got a seat at the table. Councilman Stichels, you have anything to add?
Nope, that's great. I think the chief might probably has a suggestion of the way it could be done also.
Excellent. I think that's why good collaboration is working between us all. Councilman Paplowskis, you have a council member communication, I'm assuming, because your hand came up a couple times.
Yes, thank you. Briefly, I'm going to give canvassing department a plug. They need 140 or more poll workers coming up for the election. So if anybody knows anyone that wants a great job for election day and help out, they definitely need help. Their phone number is 780-3127. And the second thing I have is I just want to thank RIDOT. I mentioned earlier in the meeting that they came out and cleaned the weeds on Atwood Avenue. I did have to call Gene Valicenti's show, ask the director, and kind of ask Peter Alvidi on the spot to come out and clean the roads, but they did get it done right away, and I thank them for that.
Councilman Paplowskis, I wasn't going to mention that when you did it earlier, but I did hear you on Gene Valicenti basically guilt Director Alvidi into coming in and doing them. I will say he did say, I'm not sure if they're our streets or your streets, to kind of make it seem like it wasn't. I know that area very well. I knew clearly it was his to do.
I knew they were his streets, and he knew they were his streets. I'm just glad they did them, and I thank them for that. That's all I got. Thank you.
All right. Any other councilman communications? Seeing none, I'll close that portion of the meeting. Hang on. I think we're on to new business, right? There is no old business. Introduction of new business. I will entertain sending all new business to the proper committee as a block.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to send all new business to the proper committee as a block. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Stichels?
Yes.
Councilmember Hopkins?
Yes.
Councilmember Vargas?
Yes.
Councilmember Jermaine?
Yes, I'm sorry, I was mute.
Councilmember Donegan?
Yes.
Councilmember Brady?
Yes.
Councilmember Paplowskis?
Yes.
Council Vice President Riccio?
Yes.
Council President Farina?
Yes. Now on the block.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion, I have a second. Under discussion. Seeing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Stichels?
Yes.
Councilmember Hopkins?
Yes.
Councilmember Vargas?
Yes.
Councilmember Jermaine?
Yes,
Councilmember Donegan?
Yes.
Councilmember Brady?
Yes.
Councilmember Paplowskis?
Yes.
Council Vice President Riccio?
Yes.
Council President Farina?
Yes. Madam Clerk, there's no miscellaneous business? Or is there? I closed the docket.
Just the two ordinances that failed in committee is just reported out. There's no action to be taken.
Excellent. Thank you. Please take that as a note. The Cranston City Council's next full council meeting will be August 31st, 2020. Last move for the night.
At 6:30.
6:30.
Oh, thank you. 6:30. I already did it. Yes, it is Monday, August 31st at 6:30. We've suspended that rule for the rest of the year. Again, Council Vice President.
Yeah, I thought the agenda said August 24, just to be.
Oh, you know what? I'm looking at municipal court. I'm sorry. So you are right. What would I do without you, Mike?
I'm here. I knew I need to stay to the bitter end.
So it's August 21st.
August
not the
24th, not the 31st.
Good.
I
The
apologize.
It's the fourth Monday, not the fifth.
It's the fourth Monday.
The 30th is Judy's birthday. I would have been in trouble.
Yeah, you would have. Lastly, welcome Council Member Jermaine to the body. This was a historic night appointing the first African American and the first African American woman to the council, Councilman Hopkins.
Thank you, President. We also had a birthday this week. Councilman, the youngster there, Councilman Brady, turned 19 yesterday, I think. Happy birthday.
Thank you, Ken. Appreciate it, buddy.
Yeah, I turned 42 on the 11th, and nobody seemed to care. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Happy birthday, Mike.
Happy birthday, Mike.
Birthday to
moved.
everybody.
I have a motion to adjourn in a second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Bye. Good night, everybody. Congratulations again,
Good night.
Denise. Welcome to council.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Good night.
Congratulations.